It's time for Montgomery's conversational radio show. It's news and views on News Talk 93.1 FM. To join the conversation, call 272-9228.
Joey Clark.
Welcome into the program. I'm your host, Joey Clark. Thank God for another beautiful day, though it is hot. It's still beautiful, but hot. Hopefully it'll be a beautiful show and Montgomery needs a new mayor. Flying solo today, so all the help I can get on the phones, 334-272-9228. But hold your horses because, well, I did a little thing over the weekend. I read a book. I read a book by a man named J.D. Vance. I believe he's the vice president. And his new book, Communion, Finding My Way Back to Faith. Before I get into this full write-up and what it really brought to my mind after reading it, number one, it's short. It's only 300 pages on big pages with big font. If you read fast, take you about 4 or 5 hours. I mean, some of y'all read even faster than that. But listen on audiobook takes about 7-8 hours. And, but yeah, if you know how to read, it's not that long or difficult to read. And I think it's endearing, largely. I think it's endearing to hear the story of the vice president and how he started in faith, how he fell away from faith, and how he, well, found his way back to faith and is now a Catholic in the bosom of the Catholic Church. Now, there was one line that, you know, he talks about his mama all the time. His grandmother really took care of him. And there was one line where Vance was discussing, you know, being an atheist, kind of in his 20s and 30s, and, you know, being in that very modern, high-achieving world, especially at Yale. And he started to take on, thinking back, all the flippant, crass ways people would just look at those people who believe in God. And, you know, one is people's like, oh, do you believe in Santa Claus too? And he has memories of his mama saying, screw Santa Claus, I buy you your presents. And there's a comical aspect to the tragic conditions that J.D. Vance grew up in. Great, strong people and really also screwed up people with a lot of demons and a lot of issues. But the main takeaway from his childhood is that he did have a deep sense of faith, especially from his grandmother and even from his father, though he was a bit estranged. And so you see Vance fall away, and the larger story of his comeback I'll leave to y'all who want to read the book. But he does eventually come back. I believe he converted to Catholicism in 2019 or 2020, something like that. Maybe 2018, a few years back. And for him, it was a slow process. He said a lot of things just started to click and make sense. There were certain arguments, certain church fathers, but really it was more a slow burn. And he describes at one point when he's in this European cathedral with Usha is taking the kids somewhere else. And he's sitting there after they're touring all of Europe. And he's sitting there in this cathedral and he just realizes the beauty of it, how ancient it is. And then he realizes a simple thought that I very much have been feeling over the last few months. This feels like home. Yeah, I know about all the scandals, especially Vance and, Usha Vance, JD and Usha. had young children. And so if JD's thinking about becoming a Catholic, of course people are going to start looking into the child sex abuse stuff. And so, you just had a son and you're going to bring him into that world that it wasn't just a few bad apples. The cover-up was incredibly awful. And just the way that the organization run by men went about things. But he's sitting in that cathedral, and this again was years of a slow burn of arguments developing in his mind. And this perspective that, no, actually smart people, he credits Peter Thiel, of all folks, of being one of the first really smart folks out there who was a true believing Christian. And showed, well, no, it's not just something that's superstitious or something you can write off, that you can actually give some nuanced thought to it. And in particular, Peter Thiel's development of Rene Girard and the idea of the scapegoat and the idea of mimetic desire, of just wanting things because other people want things, and it creates rivalry and all sorts of problems. But again, it wasn't these highfalutin ideas necessarily. It was Vance in that cathedral started to realize this place, for better or for worse, all the problems, all the arguments you can make against it, feels like home. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. It's from Isaiah 55, 8 through 9. Reading Vance's new book, and again, it's called Communion, Finding My Way Back to Faith, I couldn't help but think of my own return journey. Though our stories are quite different, there is much we share. As millennial men, we both adore The Lord of the Rings and The Chronicles of Narnia. We both read too much Ayn Rand, Tucker Max, and Neil Strauss. Tucker Max is I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, and Neil Strauss is The Game, which, is a brilliant book, but covers very seedy, crazy world of pickup artistry. And Vance and I are both of that same millennial generation. And of course, I remember Ayn Rand playing a similar role for me as it did J.D. Vance. But on a personal level, I can relate to Vance and how we were and continue to be shaped by strong maternal figures. For him, his mama, and for me, my mother. Most importantly, we have both ended up nestled in the bosom of the Catholic Church, receiving the same communion. Yet where Vance is a convert to Catholicism, I'm a revert. Where Vance became an overachiever for achievement's sake, in reaction to the poverty and chaos of his upbringing, I became an inebriated and self-medicated student of the philosophy, don't try. Do not try. In reaction to the charmed chaos of my upper middle-class childhood, where Vance clung too tightly to the brittle interpretations of his evangelical faith, only to watch them break apart in his hands as life got going and as tough things started approaching him. I grasped too loosely to the traditions of my Catholic faith, letting the world lead me by the hand into sin. But that is where our similarities begin again, between myself and the vice president. Sin. Though Vance offers many plausible and convincing secular explanations for why so many people have fallen away from faith, from all the worldly distractions of contemporary technology, just think of the phone or all the different things competing for your attention, or the distractions of culture, to the instability and fleeting nature of modern family and institutions. A lot of different explanations, but I suspect the vice president wouldn't disagree with what I'm about to say. For all the scientific, psychological, sociological, and political explanations that attempt to make sense of why faith in God is fading in America, the best explanation is as old as the faith of the church. Sin. Why? Why have so many Americans fallen away from the faith? Sin. Why have so many fallen into this or that worldly lifestyle, made excuses for it on top of excuses? Sin. Why have so many Protestant, evangelical, and Catholic churches lost an entire generation of women and men? Sin. And sin comes in many forms. Sometimes it's truly scandalous. like the child abuse scandals of the Catholic Church. Yet sometimes sins as mundane as water to a fish. Yes, we are swayed by the familial and cultural currents in which we swim. No doubt about it. Our traumas and trespasses haunt us across generations. Sometimes there are consequences to the sins of the father. But we also have use of our own fins as we swim in these cultural and family currents. So rather than merely playing the victim of circumstance or pretending individualism, sort of libertarian sense, can set us free, the recognition of sin liberates us to see we are not alone in community, yet must also take personal responsibility for our own and others' suffering through humility to the Word. Indeed, humility is what both Vance and I needed to journey home to our shared Catholic faith, especially regarding our relation to the Word incarnate. Both of us regarded Holy Scripture and tradition with pride, though our pride manifested quite differently. For Vance, it was a meditation, and he says this in the book, it was a meditation from St. Augustine on the book of Genesis that first loosed the firm grip of his pride. Here's the meditation from Augustine. In matters that are obscure and far beyond our vision, even in such as we may find treated in Holy Scripture, different interpretations are sometimes possible without prejudice to the faith we have received. In such a case, we should not rush in headlong and so firmly take our stand on one side that if further progress in the search of truth justly undermines this position, we too fall with it. That would be to battle not for the teaching of Holy Scripture, but for our own, wishing its teaching to conform to ours, whereas we ought to wish ours to conform to that of sacred Scripture. I couldn't stop thinking about how I would have reacted to this passage when I was a teenager, Vance writes in his book. He continues, saying, if someone had made the same argument to me when I was 17, I would have called them a heretic. The text represented a partial surrender, the kind of accommodation to science that made a person's faith incomplete. You couldn't be a cafeteria Christian, taking and leaving what you wanted. You had to believe the whole thing. Yet here was St. Augustine, a person with far more authority and far less interest in surrendering to any secular authority than I, telling us 1,600 years ago that my own approach to Genesis was one of arrogance, the kind that might turn a person from his faith. Yet, when just reading it in Vance's book, when I read that passage from St. Augustine, I was also reminded of my own teenage pride, but for inverse reasons. At too young an age, I understood humility in interpreting the Word of God almost too well, and I twisted it to my own ends. One day, while attending Auburn University, I left the Haley Center and noticed a sizable crowd gathered around a street preacher at the threshold of the upper quad. The preacher was quite skilled, deploying a deft mix of crass provocations and studied understanding of Scripture. Many students engaged with him and left flustered, if not downright offended by his swift and cocksure retorts. The preacher seemed quite fond of deploying the word whore for effect. Annoyed with him and the students arguing with him, I stepped up to ask a question. Sir, does that Bible you hold in your hand contain the full power and might of God? I asked him. And more to the point, does your understanding of that Bible contain the full power and might of God? Is the power of God Almighty limited to the text on those pages in your interpretation? For the first time in the 20 minutes I had been watching the street preacher, he didn't immediately respond with some proof text or crude comeback or counterattack. Instead, he actually stopped and thought for a moment. No, he said calmly and carefully. God is greater than any text or my understanding. Thanks, I said. Tickled by my own cleverness, I walked away with a smug sense that I had humbled the preacher and the whole crowd all at once. Yet I wasn't humbled. Though I had just trumpeted humility before God in public, I considered that humble pose my very own, as my very own thoughts and ways. Though I could feign humility with great ability, I never once fell on my knees to pray that day or for many days, or surrender my heart to him for nearly 20 years to come. But now I'm back. And I confess I pray like I'm making up for lost time. Why? Well, in short, I started to read and let the word lead me rather than pretend my own thoughts should lead the word. I suppose that's the first and last thing Vance and I have found in common beyond all the words and clever arguments for faith. Through humble surrender to the word, the church feels like a home for the both of us. A familiar place, a stable place, a beautiful ancient place, a place of promise and peace, a place to listen and learn, a place to raise and join a family, a place for the thirsty and the hungry, a place to share in true communion, a place to drink and eat. So check out J.D. Vance's book. It's a good one, and it's a quick read. My only critique is there are portions of the book where he gets away from the autobiography about his faith and how he lost it and how he gained it back. And it definitely gets into a book that's trying to address the fact that he's the vice president and he's probably running for president. So near the end, there's a lot of addressing of political issues and how, okay, I just told you how I got my faith back. How does that apply to all sorts of hot button political issues? And that's not wrong. And in fact, I probably agree with J.D. Vance on most of what he says there at the end of the book, but it stopped being quite as interesting for me as his personal testimony. And then there's one irony I've noticed. Yeah, I said here in this thing I just read that he gripped too tightly and he reacted to the poverty and chaos, his working class upbringing, just drug abuse and drinking and physical abuse of him and some like crazy upbringing. If you want to know that, just read Hillbilly Elegy. And he reacted to that sort of poverty, that sort of being at the bottom of the ladder by becoming an overachiever for achievement's sake. And he's realized, oh, that didn't make me a good person. I got the great job. I became a lawyer for no reason at all. After going to Yale Law School, he graduated Ohio State in 2 years. It was insane the amount of classes he was taking on top of everything else he was doing. So he just became this like dogged, I got to achieve. But he realized it didn't make him a better person and that it left him hollow. And it wasn't really until the birth of his son that he really started to think about character and virtue in a way that really led him back to faith. And of course, meeting his wife as he, you can see the steps along the way where J.D. Vance started to become more of a man before kneeling before God, as opposed to this overachiever. Yet the great irony is, he's became that overachiever for achievement's sake. And he's like, and I've learned my lesson now. That's not what really matters. Anyway, vote for me for president in 2028. And I'm sure the irony is not lost on J.D. Vance. If I had to apply it to my own life, this whole philosophy, don't try, old Charles Bukowski mantra and motto, self-medicated and inebriated and all this stuff. And though I've changed my ways in a lot of ways, I'm still kind of that fella's like, well, why even try too hard? And again, that's not the proper reaction either. Either doing too much or doing too little. There is a happy medium, and I think God will lead the way if we surrender ourselves to him. 272-9228 if you want to get on the conversation. It's 334-272-9228. But apparently J.D. Vance ain't the only man in politics talking about faith. Ran across this clip this morning. Now, this is kind of foreign to me because I'm used to, people when they're giving homilies and stuff, they're wearing vestments. The vestments, they almost look like stuff described in the book of Exodus and the book of Leviticus. Instead, I'm seeing like Josh Hawley in like a athletic tight t-shirt that's tapered just right to make your arms look big and, I mean, he's in front of a big crowd in a beautiful auditorium. You can see a cross lit, spotlighted in the background above his head. But it's this big auditorium with great lighting and all this stuff. And there's a drum kit and stuff behind it. And it's a little foreign to me. But I will say, despite this sort of approach to prayer and worship being foreign to me, the message here is certainly not. So this is Josh Hawley, senator from Missouri, I believe. Missouri was the attorney general there. And he had this message to share recently. And, whether you like it or you don't like it, whether you think this is great, it's a new great awakening, people are finding God in their hearts once again, or you're saying, oh no, the Handmaid's Tale is coming true. Just interesting that so many folks in prominent positions in political life are now willing to give, speeches like this. Again, this is Senator Josh Hawley.
I believe we're at a time in our nation's history where the Spirit of God is being poured out again to reclaim the lordship of Christ over every aspect of our society. The greatest challenge and danger facing the nation is we would have Christians who proclaim an unknown and an unfelt Christ. Now, the Lord wants to get a hold of our hearts. He wants to take the ground of our hearts. He wants to pour his fire and his spirit into our hearts, and from there to move out into the nation so we might proclaim him to all of the world. And this passage shows us what that looks like. This is about the Lord bringing David to a place of empty-handedness so that the Lord can convert his heart, so that he can turn him and mold him into a man after his own heart. David's got to come to the Lord and come to him empty-handed. As men of God, it is such a dangerous thing and such an easy thing to do to begin to live in our own self-reliance. Do you know what I mean? The Lord's got to get us to the place where we see that he doesn't just want to be our co-pilot, he wants to be on the throne. He doesn't just want us to kind of keep him in the neighborhood, he wants to be number one. And the way that he gets us there is to bring us to the end of our self-reliance, is to see that we have nothing to offer him. The Lord is not interested in your strength. He is interested in your surrender. If we're willing to set down what we have so that he can give us what we need, he will meet us there in that place, just like he meets David. I believe there's an anointing on this generation, the generation of every man who's here tonight, to go and take ground for the Lord. He will give into your hand what it is you need.
Again, Senator Josh Hawley, he put that out on his own page. That is not a message that's foreign to me. It's very much, it's been in my mind, especially the last few months. But I have to admit, I sometimes question and often don't share a lot of what's happened in the last few months. Some of it's too personal and not meant for public consumption. But I have shared a lot and will continue to share a lot, because I think that's important too. But I'm not running for office. I'm not trying to get you to do anything other than, surrender your heart to God. And it won't be me, or to my credit. Certainly not. Especially a lot of y'all that were already there a long time before me. But again, it's not us. We're not the ones who save. Jesus does. The Holy Spirit moves on us. God the Father welcomes us back. It's not us. But there is something, I guess it's not a huge problem. It's just ironic, makes me slightly uncomfortable, is when I see a slickly produced video for a guy who's clearly also looking to run for president. Now, perhaps, instead of saying, grab him, when you're rich, you can do anything, just grab him by the kitty cat. Perhaps talking about God humbling King David is a better thing for somebody running for president to say. Perhaps J.D. Vance pretty openly talking about his falling away from faith and his return. It's a pretty great thing to see a young man, this young generation, Hawley's in that same camp of millennial men, that this is how they want to present themselves to people. It's probably a good thing compared to what some of y'all boomers left us with. But I'm still a little torn on this whole, it's not us. He doesn't want your strength. He wants you to submit and surrender. And by the way, vote for me in 2028. Now, like, I would receive it. I do receive the message, but I would be less bothered if you weren't trying to get me to do something for you and move me in a certain way, in a worldly way. Now, the world exists. Politics exists. Civil authorities will exist. But it's going to be a fine line because it's not just going to be the Republicans that do this. In fact, I got a clip of he's the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist, and Raphael Warnock, a senator. He's a senator and a preacher. A very historic black church. And so it's not like he shies away from saying, I proclaim the word of God and I'm a man of faith. Now, a lot of the stuff, I'm like, man, I'm definitely not a liberal Protestant, because I don't see the distinction between that and a secular progressive most of the time. It's not the reason not to be one, but it's just interesting to see how that's worked out. It's like, what do you even need God for, man? It seems like he's just more the backstop for all the human stuff. But it's going to be fascinating to watch how you will see a genuine return to faith. And I really do have hope. I really do believe that that is happening, that the seeds of that are being sown in the midst of all the chaos that dominates the culture as well. The two tend to go hand in hand. And the chaos gets a lot more attention and makes a lot more noise, whereas the seeds grow quietly. I really think that is happening. But the use of the faith as a brand, as a way to sell yourself for winning political power, or heck, making a lot of money, because we definitely see some, that's a very American thing, the televangelist. Yeah, I don't want to censor it. I don't want to filter it. I don't want to even have that big of a criticism for these guys. But I will say I'm self-aware of that. I'm very aware of that. That for all this is a good thing, there are potential downsides to everybody running for president giving a Bible lesson every time they speak in public. 272-9228. 334-272-9228. Let's go to line one. You're on there. Who's this?
Hey, how are you?
Good. Who's
I
that?
haven't called you. Yeah, I haven't called you in about a year or so. I'm David. I'm the guy that calls from California.
Hey, David.
You know, it's funny. You were talking about progressives and liberals and conservatives and this and that, and religion. Sometimes they're always saying the same thing, but they don't realize what they're doing. Like, for example, you were earlier talking about kind of the cost of living and how expensive it is. Well,
I wasn't, but keep going.
Well, I don't. You may not realize it. I put it down as the business. Well, you were talking about J.D. Vance's book.
Yes.
And when you were talking about that, you indirectly were talking about the economy, and the idea that J.D. Vance has lied. You know, if he considers himself a Christian, he basically lied America into spending a huge amount of money. And, you know, the idea he's touting the tariffs. Now, Ben Franklin, you know, about as 1776 revolutionary as you can get, he told America, don't get in tariffs because you're going to corrupt your government. You're going to make smuggling happen. And when you get smuggling going, then everything falls apart. And you end up with pirates. And pirates are no good for a calm society.
Okay.
Right? So if America was going to be founded on united we stand, divided we fall, and then you end up with a bunch of smugglers and pirates, that's not a good country to base yourself on. And so
your argument against the administration's policy of tariffs and protectionism is Ben Franklin said pirates will overrun things.
Well, he said, I can give you the attribution for it. It's in a book called The World's Famous Orations.
And then what did Hamilton say about Alexander Hamilton, the first Treasury Secretary, say about tariffs?
Oh, well, there's a lot. First of all, let me give you the attribution of Ben Franklin. It's called On a Salaried Bureaucracy.
Right.
And he was talking about corruption in government in general, and he gets into the issue of tariffs where they specifically create smuggling.
But you said this like, you started this by saying J.D. Vance lied, and I would say the question of tariff policy is actually one of judgment and has been a debate since the founding of the nation. So how do you lie?
And now that gets into Alexander Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
And Hamilton, I've read books about him actually didn't he get started borrowing money from England to found America? When he was the Treasury Secretary, he allowed them to buy bonds in America.
Yeah.
And that basically is borrowing money from the very people that you whooped a little while ago, right?
Yeah, he wanted to essentially replace the British system with the American system, and it was really the same system, just America would be the central clearinghouse, so to speak.
Right, and so the whole idea of being able to use a kind of money, see, in the old days, the port agent was the guy that you came in there when your ship pulled in, and the money exchanges happened in there, the currency exchanges, the loads, the manifests, and all of the data about what's coming in, if there was going to be any kind of duty paid. But tariffs were a dangerous idea because it encouraged smuggling. Mm-hmm. And when you start doing that, then you got your port agent that's a crook and everybody else. And so the whole idea, well, I'm going to go a whole lot further back, and this gets into the religious, and that's Moses. And Moses said, when the money becomes so phony that nobody can trust that kind of money anymore, you got a jubilee. You have to do a jubilee. You have to cancel the debts. And there are a lot of people that have scammed this idea of jubilee. There's about 6 or 8 different definitions of jubilee if you look it up. But the biggest idea is that when the money becomes so phony, you have to have a system of trust. And when the symbol of trust of like, for example, Jesus, he's given a coin and they say, render unto Caesar. And he says, yeah, well, that, and he tosses it in a bush. And so, yeah, I'll render unto Caesar. And that money's no good here anymore. You know, we've got, God owns everything. So how about we just cancel all the debts? And that's the Moses thing, that you cancel the debts and everybody starts over. That means Elon Musk has got to start over too. Mm-hmm. And do we have to believe his phony cryptocurrency numbers, or can we make a penny worth more than a Bitcoin? So you could call me a progressive, or you could call me a Ben Franklin, Moses, religious guy. I don't
know if the reason the Jubilee was instituted by God, saying like the book of Leviticus, is because the money got phony. It more seemed like a way of resetting and reconciling. That didn't just come from Moses. That comes from God in the covenant he's giving to Moses and his people. And there's a lot of things that we don't do that from the old covenant, for instance.
Again, the translations come into it. Like, sure. Which translation are you reading that from? Because there's a great book written just about the King James Bible. It's called God's Secretaries. And you read in there, he's King
I think
James
every translation is going to suggest that we're under the new covenant.
Well, right. But in other words, like I was saying, there's a bunch of definitions of Jubilee.
Right. And I don't think you're necessarily wrong. There's a lot of wisdom in the idea of forgiving debts every few years, especially to help those who are downtrodden and marginalized and stuck under a load of debt. But there's also something to be said for the idea of debt when you're trying to essentially price in time and future expectations and what certain people will be able to accomplish and build and produce. So I don't know. We're kind of going all over the place, but I still don't know how J.D. Vance lied, or even where I was indirectly talking about the economy.
Oh, well, in his case, you remember those when they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. That's J.D. Vance, and he bore false witness against them. Now, the Supreme Court just the other day said those people, he smeared so many people with one nasty innuendo if one cat got eaten, then he smeared 350,000 people.
Mhm.
And he's going to send them back to Haiti, where the minimum wage is approximately 24 cents an hour. 24 cents an hour. They have death squads down there in El Salvador, and most of those people are allowed to escape the death squads of sweatshops. Because you know that sweatshops are usually the people that pay for the death squads, right? They're making so much money that they can afford to have people do dirty deeds sold dirt cheap and killing people for asking for 23 cents an hour, $1 an hour. And when it's dirty deeds sold dirt cheap, and J.D. Vance was in on it. J.D. Vance was in on it when he I got somebody at my door.
Well, and I got to hit a break, David. But
yeah, hey, well, take care.
Always good talking to
you.
you. Thank you. A little over the place, but always good to hear from that gentleman. This part of the program brought to you by Pest Pro Services, and they're at Pest Pro. Ashley and that great team are ready to help you out with any and all of your pest control needs. And so that means that, well, you need somebody to help you out with basic pest control. They can stop by on a regular basis. In fact, they have this monthly subscription plan that allows you to control pest control costs throughout the year. And often they don't even have to come inside. They can just spray around the property, and it really does make sure the home is taken care of. Those little insects ain't getting in there. But of course, you could have something that's more seasonal. Like right now, mosquitoes are crazy right now. So if you actually want to enjoy your property, your backyard, your front porch, maybe you got a lot of property and you like walking it, and you're getting eaten up as you're trying to solve all the world's problems out on a stroll. Well, why not have Pest Pro come out and treat the yard directly instead of you having to spray yourself or light up candles that don't even work? They can get rid of those nasty, nasty mosquitoes. And so termites, mosquitoes, basic pest control, even wildlife. You get some little critter trying to make a home out of your home, they can take care of that. They're Pest Pro Services. You can always learn more at ppsriverregion.com or search Pest Pro Services on the Book of Faces, or call them direct at 265-9990. That's 265-9990. And be sure to tell Ashley and that great team that Joey, that fellow on the radio, sent you. When you want to know, call a pro.
Want to carry News Talk in your pocket? Download the News Talk 93.1 app from the App Store. Available on iPhone and Android. Never miss a moment. Download now.
When it comes to your mortgage, who you work with matters. And this is one decision where local makes all the difference. Don't fall victim to flashy mailers, spam calls, or 1-800-lenders who don't even know your name, much less your neighborhood. Those lenders are often sitting in some faraway state, reading from a script, and chasing volume, not relationships. A local lender understands the market you live in, or should I say that we live in. At Alabama Home Mortgage, you can look at us in the eye and trust us with one of the biggest financial decisions you'll ever make. Local lenders don't disappear after closing day. Our reputation is built right here, one family at a time. So before you pick up the phone and call a stranger, remember us, Kim Williams and Madeline Cannon at Alabama Home Mortgage. You deserve guidance from someone who knows the community because they're a part of it. Give us a call at Alabama Home Mortgage today at 334-567-4223 or visit us online at myalabamahomemortgage.com. That's Alabama Home Mortgage, because there is a difference in mortgage companies. NMLS 1586368, Equal Housing Lender.
We get this question all the time.
Do you handle that?
Buying or selling a home?
Yes.
Commercial?
Yes.
Land or investments?
Absolutely. Hannah and Eddie Realty Group. One team.
Every real estate move. 334-322-0662.
2026 marks 60 years that hope has had a home in Alabama. At the Alabama Sheriff's Youth Ranches, children who've lost everything through no fault of their own have found something priceless. A safe place to live, a loving Christian family, and the chance to simply be kids again. Here, boys and girls grow up surrounded by care, guidance, and faith, learning right from wrong, learning responsibility, learning they are valued and that their lives have purpose. As the Alabama Sheriffs have believed for 6 decades, it's easier to build boys and girls than to repair men and women. These former ranchers are now teachers, parents, business owners, and leaders, living proof that love, structure, and faith can change a life forever. As the Alabama Sheriff's Youth Ranches celebrate 60 years of serving Alabama's children, you could help ensure the next child has the same chance. Learn how you could make a difference at alabamasheriffsyouthranches.org. 60 years of building lives, and we're just getting started.
Rich Thomas Weather is brought to you by Mr. Electric of Montgomery. Mr. Electric, we've got the power to make things better. Visit MrElectric.com.
Rich Thomas Weather.
Well, hi, everybody. We're not just talking about heat this week. We're talking about some dangerous heat indices. Mostly sunny today, high temperature up to about 97, heat index in the 105 to 110 danger range. Even very muggy and oppressive at night with the overnight low temperature down to about 77. I think we're easily in the mid-90s again tomorrow. Maybe a few spotty storms here and there, but not many. In fact, most days this week should be dry. And through at least the 4th of July, we're looking at triple-digit heat indices with actual highs at least in the mid-90s. From the Blue Water Weather Center, this is Rich Thomas.
When news happens, you'll hear about it first. The River Region's most trusted voice. News Talk 93.1 FM WACB.
Joey Clark.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Joey Clark. And now I want to share a video that the president put out, the White House put out, and this is on, well, the Declaration and America's, birthday coming up less than a week away. I guess it's Saturday is July the 4th, but here's the president. This was put up at the U.S. mission to NATO, so I guess we're trying to teach them Europeans something here about America. Let's listen in to the president.
In the sweltering summer of 1776, 56 patriots gathered in a meeting hall in Philadelphia and signed their names to a document that would change the course of history forever. The Declaration of Independence, and I have it right there. What a beauty. Not only did they sever the political bonds with Great Britain, they announced a new era in human events, proclaiming that all of us are endowed by our Creator with rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In our war for independence and every generation since, thousands of American patriots have enlisted their lives in defense of that cause. From Trenton to Yorktown, from Gettysburg to Chambersburg, from the fields of France to the shores of the Philippines, and on the battlefields all over the world. Every generation of Americans has drawn meaning and been inspired by the immortal deeds of the founding generation and the nation they gave us to build and to defend. In 2.5 centuries, that's 250 years, the spirit of 1776 has carried our flag to places and heights that our founding fathers could never have dreamed. Americans forged into the frontier and blazed across the Great Plains. We tamed the Wild West. We pushed the boundaries of scientific discovery. We enlightened the world with electricity and commerce. We defeated tyrants and vanquished dictators, and we planted the American flag on the moon. We owe it all to the patriots and heroes of 1776. This is the story of America. We're excited to retell one of the greatest tales in the history of mankind, working with Hillsdale College and some of our country's brightest leaders and foremost thinkers who have contributed to the Story of America video series, including Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Dr.
Well, and I'm going to have to stop it because apparently this clip is not working on the radio. Good job, NATO, putting it in mono. Good job indeed. But in a second, we're going to talk more about the Declaration of Independence and great breakdown by Alan Mendenhall. He'll be joining the show after 1. And he's covering, last week, he covered a book called The Making of the American Mind by Matthew Spalding. And it's a pretty fascinating breakdown of the Declaration of Independence, almost letting the Declaration speak for itself in so many ways. And so look forward to talking to Alan about that. And of course, he's written a very touching, luminous family essay that is out today at 1819news.com. Always enjoy Alan Mendenhall's writing and always enjoy his time here on the program. We'll be right back after this.
He may not know whether he's coming or going, but whether you're going to work or coming home, Greg Budell is there. Mornings, 6 till 9, and afternoons, 3 till 6. Only on News Talk 93.1 FM, WACV.
For too long, Alabama's statewide news companies have shamed us for our conservative Christian values. Alabama deserves a news company that cherishes our culture, a company that isn't bought and paid for by the powers that be. 1819 News is that company. Run by Alabamians for Alabamians, 1819 News celebrates what is good and beautiful about our state, while exposing those who work against our values in secret. Just go to 1819news.com to learn more. Subscribe to our newsletter. That's 1819news.com.
Hi, I'm Carl Schmidt, naturopath and owner of the Herb Shop Wellness Center at 8161 Vaughan Road. You know, with over 30 years experience in natural wellness, I've seen countless health fads come and go. A few years ago, we added a patented technology that actually activates your stem cells. It reverses the aging process at the cellular level. However, you do need proper hydration and targeted nutrition. At the Herb Shop, our advanced scanning and testing technology allows us to accurately assess your nutritional needs and get a customized plan for you. Come in today and see what the Herb Shop can do for you.
The premier place the River Region turns to for news, weather, traffic, and opinion. News Talk 93.1 FM, WACV.
Joey Clark.
Welcome back. This part of the program brought to you by Invista Advisors, and they're at Invista Advisors. Austin Baranko and the entire team there at Invista are ready to help you across the board with any of your financial planning, financial strategies. They can help you. Of course, Austin runs the brokerage desk there at Invista Advisors. So if you're looking for asset management, for running that investment portfolio, of course, they can help you and do fantastic work for you there at Invista Advisors. But it's not just the investment side of the house. Indeed, they have a team that includes CPAs, business consultants, and yes, investment advisors. They all work together to provide that comprehensive approach that allows them to help you, whether you're just starting out in life or maybe you're in the middle of life and need to untangle. A lot of finances have built up over the years, or you need to make sure end-of-life concerns are all buttoned up. Or it could be unique situations like you started a nonprofit or started helping out, running an endowment, and all of a sudden it's gotten too big for just you and your own expertise. Why not have Invista Advisors come in and help you out? Or it could be you just need to get life insurance or put a plan together for the kids' future. Really, individuals, families, business consulting, charities, and nonprofits, they can help you there at Invista Advisors. So just call them direct. Start the conversation that way at 387-0094. That's 387-0094. And be sure to tell them that Joey, that fella on the radio, sent you. Again, 272-9228 if you want to get in on the conversation. That's 334-272-9228. In the news today, what came out was the U.S. and Iran agreed to halt their attacks and meet in Qatar Tuesday, tomorrow. Apparently, negotiations are still scheduled. The U.S., of course, retaliated after Iran threw some drones at some ships. So the U.S. hit a lot of missile storage units and missile deployment batteries and all sorts of stuff. We just blew the things clear out. And now we're back to the talking table. I don't know. Keep praying for peace, folks. Keep praying for peace. The Supreme Court just came out with a ruling. Trump very annoyed with it. Now doubling down and saying we have to pass the SAVE Act. But the Supreme Court says mail ballots can be counted after Election Day. Now, the court said Congress could still end mail-in ballot collection after Election Day by passing a new law, but as the laws currently stand, and as the Constitution currently stands, states that allow mailed-in ballots to be counted after Election Day are fair game. But the Supreme Court did grant Trump a win on, let's say, Trump called it a major win. Presidential power allowed Trump to fire the FTC commissioner. And this could have ramifications beyond the Federal Trade Commission. And it allows a major victory for proponents of the unitary executive theory, so to speak. The idea that the president should have complete control over the executive branch, like he's the CEO. Under this theory, the president should be able to fire any member of the executive branch, and laws like the one the court struck down that restrict his ability to do so violate the separation of power. So that is an interesting precedent beyond just firing this particular commissioner. But then there was another one the courts came out with saying that Trump has to pay E. Jean Carroll for $5 million for the suit reward, the lawsuit that she won, saying he did all sorts of awful things to her. Trump maintains never met the woman, and meeting in a photo line with her husband 20 decades ago, or however long decades ago, doesn't count. By the way, would you hate to be somebody that gets thrown into a van called recruiting in Russia? And this should be a wake-up call to not just people in Russia, but everybody serving in any military, especially, let's say, somebody, infantryman. Russian recruits have a life expectancy of 20 minutes on the battlefield. Not 20 hours, not 20 days. A life expectancy of 20 minutes on the Ukrainian battlefield. You know, we had plenty of people on warning and saying the awesome power of drones is coming. Well, no, it's here. And human beings being out there in open fields, well, they're sitting ducks, literally. 20-minute life expectancy out there on that battlefield. Insane. Absolutely insane. Let's hit a break. We'll come back, talk to Alan Mendenhall about the Declaration of Independence and much more. Stay tuned.
From the Riverside Chevrolet Master Control Center, this is WACV Cusana, News Talk 93.1 FM. When it's Chevy, it's Riverside.
With SRN News, I'm Bob Agnew. In Washington, wildfires proving to be deadly some places in the west. 3 firefighters were killed, 2 injured while battling blazes on the Colorado-Utah border. The U.S. Wildland Fire Service says they were responding to the Knowles and Gore fires on Saturday. Wildfire activity has intensified across the western part of the country due to hot, dry, and windy conditions. The Supreme Court releasing major decisions today ahead of the summer recess. One of those involved the mailing of late ballots in the state of Georgia, make it Mississippi. They say that they are allowed to accept those mail-in ballots up to 5 days after Election Day, provided they were postmarked by Election Day. With social media assists from President Trump, House Speaker Mike Johnson optimistic this week to easing divisions in his Republican ranks and make progress on key legislation before the midterms. This is SRN News.
Hey, I'm not one to say I told you so, but do you remember last year when I told you that Pure Talk was hands down the best wireless company that I'd ever used? Well, some of you were skeptical, but Consumer Reports just asked 120,000 people to rate every wireless company in America, including the big boys. Well, guess which company was the only company to get 5 stars in every category? Yeah, Pure Talk. Coverage, support, value, data. 5 stars across the board. No service contracts, no cancellation fees, just great U.S. customer service on a crazy fast 5G network for a fraction of what you've been paying. I'm not going to say I told you so, but I will encourage you one more time to dial pound 250, say micro, and switch to a 5-star American wireless company that won't let you down.
Rich Thomas weather is brought to you by Victoryland.
Victoryland Casinos, crowning 25K free play giveaway. The more you visit, the more chances you have to win. Victoryland Casino, where you can be a winner too.
Well, hi, everybody. We're not just talking about heat this week. We're talking about some dangerous heat indices. Mostly sunny today, high temperature up to about 97, heat index in the 105 to 110 danger range. Even very muggy and oppressive at night with the overnight low temperature down to about 77. I think we're easily in the mid-90s again tomorrow. Maybe a few spotty storms here and there, but not many. In fact, most days this week should be dry. And through at least the 4th of July, we're looking at triple-digit heat indices with actual highs at least in the mid-90s. From the Blue Water Weather Center, this is Rich Thomas.
The Blue Water Broadcasting News Center, these are today's top stories. One person was killed, another injured in a Saturday night shooting in West Montgomery. The incident happened just before 8 p.m. in the 1500 block of Westcott Street, where the adult male victim was found shot to death. An adult female was also wounded and transported to a local hospital in serious condition. 33-year-old Devontae Holloway was arrested Sunday and charged with capital murder and first-degree assault. A Montgomery woman who was injured in a house fire last week has died. 66-year-old Valerie Moore died Sunday at a specialized burn treatment hospital. The early Wednesday morning fire happened at a single-story home on Alta Road. Firefighters were able to rescue Moore from inside the burning home. She was transported to a local ER in critical condition. 2 people were thrown into the water. One was injured when 2 boats collided on Lake Mitchell. The crash happened Friday night near Hatchet Creek, where 38-year-old Natasha Holt was recovered from the water following a collision of 2 bass boats. Holt was transported to Baptist Medical Center East in Montgomery in serious condition. From the Blue Water Broadcasting News Center, I'm Sky Mosley.
This hour of news and views is brought to you by our good friends at Alabama Home Mortgage. Alabama Home Mortgage, 567-4223. Visit them on the web at myalabamahomemortgage.com. NMLS number 1586368, an equal housing lender.
The views and opinions of the following program are solely those of the host and other contributors. These do not necessarily represent those of Liberty Acquisitions 825, Blue Water Broadcasting, its management, staff, or any advertisers. It's time for Montgomery's conversational radio show. It's news and views on News Talk 93.1 FM. To join the conversation, call 272-9228.
Joey Clark.
Welcome back. Now, as promised, looking forward to this conversation, we have on the program with us Alan Mendenhall. Alan, how are you today, sir?
I'm great, Joey. How are you?
I'm doing very well, and I want to share something cool. I just discovered this Twitter page or X page called 1776 Live. So they're like acting as though here's exactly what was happening 250 years ago. So 3 hours ago, they put out that Thomas Paine publishes an open letter to the Pennsylvania Evening Post under the name Republicus, which advocates for the name the United States of America for the new nation now emerging. This is the first time such a term's been used. Of course, Paine became famous in January 250 years ago for Common Sense. The independent state of Virginia today adopts a constitution. They declared independence 7 weeks ago. And yesterday, 250 years ago yesterday, Thomas Jefferson submits the final draft of his Declaration of Independence to the Continental Congress. And you've got, looking at a photo here of that draft. And you, Alan, recently did a review on a book that was really breaking down the Declaration. And I have yet to read that book, but it sounds like it's a fascinating take, almost letting the Declaration speak for itself in a way.
Yeah, it's written by actually a friend of mine, Matthew Spalding, who's dean of the DC campus, the Kirby Center campus over in basically directly across the street from the Heritage Foundation. But he and I have known each other for a long time through the Philadelphia Society. But great book, and it takes its title from the phrase "the American Mind." The Claremont Institute also has a website and a publication called The American Mind. But that's from a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote in 1825 to Henry Lee. And he said that basically the Declaration was his expression of the American mind. But yeah, it's a really well done work. It reads almost like literary criticism in that it doesn't just do the historical thing, but it analyzes the words very carefully, does a close reading. And, rather than taking each of those famous phrases in isolation, Matt organizes all the chapters around the Declaration's own language, and he looks at the text as if it's like a symphony or a poem, and emphasizes how each particular section contributes to a more coherent whole and forms an argument. And he talks about the British legal tradition. He talks about how Christianity is the foundation of self-government. He talks about how the treatment of slavery is debated, and how parts of Jefferson's text get excised from the final product. So yeah, it's a really fascinating book. And of course, as everyone listening to your show knows, we're in the semi-quincentennial. So what better time to read a book like this?
Yeah, and again, folks, it's called The Making of the American Mind. And one thing you highlighted in your review of it is how he focuses on just the word declaration. And, I think everyday people still do this, where you can make subtle allusions and everybody understands, especially in pop culture, what you're talking about. So the word declaration would have had this extra connotation to it that it would bring into people's minds something that when we see the word today, maybe we just think, fancy word for I'm saying something.
Yeah, like a declaration, not just in the casual, colloquial way in which we use the form, but in a very formal sense in the English political and constitutional tradition, where a representative body is announcing a constitutional change. And that's a really important thing. This is like, it'd be like us using the word complaint in a casual way versus like a complaint, which is a formal pleading that you file in a court. Like the word declaration had that formal context.
Well, and it stretches into, it's interesting, like how British the founders were still and thought of themselves as Englishmen, and appealing to that long history that often in tradition that wasn't written down. It's like they're finally putting a stamp with this independent American streak.
Yeah, and that's why I actually dislike the term American Revolution for the period, because I don't feel that our framers, at least most of them, they weren't revolutionaries. They weren't trying to innovate and create something entirely new and without precedent. They actually saw themselves as protecting and preserving the ancient rights and liberties that they enjoyed as Englishmen. And so the Declaration of Independence is part of a textual network that goes back to the Petition of Rights, the Bill of Rights, Magna Carta. It's got antecedents. And in that sense, it's looking to the past rather than toward a future that doesn't exist. And if you compare our Constitution and the Declaration of Independence to the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen of the French, find a lot of distinction, a lot of differences. The French appeal to abstractions, and their document is much more radical than our Declaration of Independence. Of course, there are things that are still debated within the Declaration of Independence. We have notions of equality, notions of popular sovereignty, and we still debate what those mean. But in terms of significance, I can think of fewer political documents, except for maybe Magna Carta, that have had more enduring relevance to politics, not just in the United States, but globally.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here wondering, especially the way DC still operates, and we're getting some good Supreme Court rulings in the last several years, but for all the idea we have a written constitution as opposed to the unwritten British Constitution, it seems like we still have this unwritten living thing that operates very much like the British system. I mean, I wonder, did we really accomplish something by writing it down? Now, I think I could argue different ways of this, but what do you think of that we still seem to have that very British sense of, well, it's not officially written down, and even if it is, we'll reinterpret it?
Yeah, it's interesting because we've never quite in 250 years, more than that, in fact, because we had common law imported before the Declaration of Independence, of course, but we've never quite figured out what it means to incorporate the common law on this side of the pond. Now, of course, our Constitution, which is far more recent than the Declaration, we have the Constitutional Convention in 1787, but with that framework in place, with those guardrails in place, we've not quite figured out how the common law works here. Each state has its own common law system. Even in Louisiana, which is supposed to be on a civil law code, the only state that exists on that kind of old Napoleonic code model, there's still something like the common law taking place in the sense that judges do tend to recognize stare decisis. They do tend to follow precedent of their other judges because it gives them cover for the opinion that they're issuing. But in terms of what it means to have a common law tradition in a system in which there is a governing overarching architecture, and that is the Constitution, how fixed is that Constitution? What do you do when there are questions of interpretation? Of course, the provisions of the Constitution that deal with federalism are fairly vague and do allow for some flexibility. So what is the judge's role? How does precedent work? These are all questions that we're still working out. Now, interestingly enough, since the rise of originalism in the 1980s, we've seen a particular judicial hermeneutic solidify. So even, justices like Kagan are, as Kagan famously said in the confirmation hearing, we're all textualists now. But even Justice Jackson, who is coming up with some pretty harebrained opinions and writing some somewhat ridiculous things, is at least constrained by the originalist textualist hermeneutic and is trying to do her historicism, her history, in that mold. Even though she's reaching some strange conclusions every now and then, she's at least having to go through the methodology.
Right. At least. And there's something to be said about that methodology. Maybe it doesn't produce the result that you want in the moment, but it tends to produce really great results over the generations. I want to real quick, though, go back to the founding, and I should have probably texted you this beforehand, but could you think of like different points in your life where you thought about the founding generation, you thought about the revolution, and has it changed at all or adjusted like your perspective on, say, what those men did 250 years ago?
Well, I can remember studying the founding in school, in particular in middle school, and being inspired by figures like Thomas Jefferson, being inspired by figures like Patrick Henry. Something about these Virginians was very appealing to me. I can recall my parents taking me to Mount Vernon in 8th grade. I was in 8th grade at the time. So all these things were hitting back to back to back right when I was in middle school, and sort of inspired my love of government, politics, law, at least my love of studying those things. My views of the founders have probably evolved in different ways, just as I've gotten older and more sophisticated. And one simplistic way of putting it is this, there's a tendency on one extreme to try to glorify and lionize the founders as if they were these perfect beings doing awesome things. And then on the other side, it's just to demonize them and trash them and treat them as products of this horrible time when everybody wanted slavery and all this kind of stuff. Well, both of those are highly problematic approaches. And I think the best way to teach the founders is warts and all, but not all warts. Right. So many people want to teach them as all warts, but you teach them warts and all, not all warts. I mean, if you look at all the freedoms that they enabled, I mean, without sort of this liberalism tradition that the founders were part of, would you have had the end of slavery? Would you have ever had the civil rights movement? I mean, think about Frederick Douglass as couching language in the terms of the Declaration. The abolitionists are hearkening back to the Declaration. Civil rights movement hearkening back to the Declaration. And now all of a sudden we have people who purport to be liberating forces who would reject out of hand the Declaration because Thomas Jefferson's pen was involved. That's ridiculous to me.
Right. It is ridiculous. You said simplistic, but I thought that was quite well and eloquent. And I find I was, as a kid, I'm just, the memory came back. I won in like 10th or 11th grade some speech class and gave some speech on the Battle of Bunker Hill. And I remember, I think I'd literally describe the founding generation as like demigods. But to your point, how impressive is it for a demigod to do like amazing things? Whereas if you take a real flesh and blood human being, a sinner, fallen, a lot of warts, and they still are able in this one time in history to do amazing things that almost seem like God's little G did it, that's an even better story. And yeah, it seems like our brothers and sisters today who want to constantly rip things down, like you're ruining the story. Like every story has an arc and has this messiness. But then, of course, I guess there are other angles that come up for me of, like, you look at the people like Alexander Hamilton and like the Federalist letters and so many of the things that came out, the amount of Machiavellian political gamesmanship was going on. I don't think there's enough given when we do these official celebrations. Unlike from the get-go, these guys are cutthroat after they win their independence with each other.
Well, one thing that amazes me, like just looking at the Federalist Papers that Madison authored, is how he's like a proto-public choice economist in so many ways. He makes these claims about different theories about human nature that really predate any sort of empirical or quantitative studies. And it turns out we have all this, all this economics and all this sociology and all these quantitative fields now that tend to affirm some of the claims Madison makes about the way political actors behave. And he didn't have recourse to this type of mathematical evidence. He was just a keen observer of human nature and could say, like, look, people tend to do this, and this is what power does. And that's a really important thing to emphasize with the founders, is their awareness of the dangers of power. And, they understood that they were flawed beings. They didn't think of themselves as being, perfect entities. Far from it. They were concerned about, the sinful state of human nature, which is why we have things like checks and balances and separation of powers and federalism and bicameral legislatures, and all these different things are designed to check power. They were a bunch of little Frodos. They knew what happened when you had the ring, and they were trying to take the ring and chop it up into a lot of different pieces so that no one person could hold it, because that would just be too dangerous.
Yeah, but it is like, I think you're absolutely right, but it's funny how they all realize we're a bunch of different Frodos, and they all become Boromir within years when it comes to one another. And it is fascinating. Like you mentioned comparing the revolution here to the French Revolution, how the French really do upend the very nature of like God and the metaphysics that had governed them for so long. Like, what did they do to the Cathedral of Notre Dame? Like, the Temple of Reason or Church of Reason or something like that. And you saw like how power almost became demonic and the amount of blood that was spilled by the French and the legacies of that. And whereas it does seem like this truly is a Christian nation that had that Christian humility, despite all their power games and all the interesting, gnarly history of the early period, there is this sense that, no, we're children under God. That gives us rights free of government, but also that, maybe we should humble ourselves before we praise ourselves too much.
Absolutely. I mean, basically all the founders were members of or attended different churches, and the people that are pointed to as exceptions, like Jefferson and Franklin, and are called deists, were clearly people who acknowledged a providence, acknowledged God. And, Jefferson has his own Bible where he excises the miracles and things like that. And
right.
But clearly he is a theist, not an atheist, but a theist, someone who believes in God. And of course, Benjamin Franklin famously at the Constitutional Convention calls for prayer so that they can get through this process and form an operative government. And so, this is a very different thing from, as you pointed out, the French Revolution, which was doing all kinds of things, right down to the calendar. Let's try to throw out the calendar. Let's try to reinvent all this stuff, from scratch. And that is a very different experience. And it's why a political theorist like Edmund Burke, who is the Anglo-Irish statesman, conservative, founder of modern conservatism, at least in terms of political theory, would support the American Revolution, but be horrified by the French Revolution.
Yeah, and it does seem like, for all the point you made about Madison, how he was able to just anticipate a lot of what has been later developed by, say, more modern methods. just his study of human nature, and he's able to essentially come up with public choice out of that. It's pretty impressive. I opened up the show. I just read over the weekend J.D. Vance's new book, and it wrote us kind of a review, but it was more compare and contrast of myself and my own return journey with Vice President Vance, and a lot of common things as millennial men, especially culturally, but some personal stuff too. That said, Vance advances a lot of different, let's say, secular arguments, like anthropological, sociological, political, economic, for why have so many people left the faith for the last, say, few generations. And what I came back to, and I think Vance subtly comes back to it, he doesn't say it outright, I think he would agree though, is maybe the church is right. The reason so many people have left is sin. And, that could be, people think of it as this finger wagging, like just looking down and judging folks. But no, if you actually understand, say nuanced theology of what we mean by sin, that explains a lot of what we see. And perhaps if we put that at the center of our understanding, it's fascinating how the modern secular descriptions actually take on more life.
That's really, I think that's insightful, Joey. So much of what Jesus teaches is paradoxes, things that seem as though they would be the inverse. And one of those is the notion of being enslaved to sin, because a lot of people think, oh, I'm out of religion, I'm free, I can go do all this stuff. But what you're actually doing is you're enslaving yourself to sin. And you are governed, controlled by sin. It dominates you, when actually the liberation comes from submitting yourself, giving yourself up to Jesus Christ. And that's where you get liberation. It's actually complete denial of the self is totally liberating, and giving yourself over to Jesus Christ is a liberating experience. Whereas what you do with sin is something entirely different. I mean, you have a certain Christian agency, which is different from the complete enslavement to sin. And that's why, the whole line of, gosh, I do what I don't want to do, and I don't do what I want to do. Why? This is so hard, but it's not meant to be easy.
And without going into the dirty details, in the last several months, especially as I started on this journey, that particular verse you just cited came to life for me. Like, I felt it so, like, in my flesh, literally. Like, I know this is wrong, but I'm doing it anyway. Like, I'm reading the Bible, then I'm going and sinning right after. Like, what is wrong with me? And it's amazing how those words come back to life when you really start to let it lead you.
Well, it's true, but it's always helpful to know that, like, the apostles suffered with all the same things. They suffered they suffered through the same things, and we make the same mistakes, and grace is nevertheless available to us just as much as it was available to Paul or to Peter. Or, we still have grace too.
Now, I want to talk about something now next. And again, folks, we're talking to Alan Mendenhall, and it's the PCF out today, Running for Home. And I would say this is, there's a particular gift of grace that shines through this. Well, and that's, I guess, the way I'd like to ask you about it, because people could go read it. It's Alan Mendenhall, Running for Home. It's at 1819news.com. But I've in my own journey recently wondering, where do these little memories come from? Like these luminous memories that stick with you. And it seems like this particular one about your grandmother is like you just brought it to life. Like I got a little glimpse inside that gift of your memory. So where do you think this comes from, and why did this particular one strike you this week?
Well, the story of my grandmother playing baseball in high heels is told often in my family, because I don't know what it's like to wear high heels, but apparently, I'm knocking things over here. Apparently, that's a difficult thing to do. And everyone just sort of found it funny that she would go out and play baseball in high heels, because as she's running through the turf, of course, they peg into the ground, but if she gets on the concrete, they tap, 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 tap. But we recently played baseball at my parents' house, and it was me, my son, Noah, my oldest son, who's 14, my daughter, Gabriella, who's 12, my mom, and my dad. And we all went out there. My mom has recently gotten knee replacements, one before football season, one after football season, so that she could actually enjoy football season. My family orients their entire lives around football. But we were playing, and of course it brought back all these memories for me of my grandmother playing baseball in the yard with us. And then I started realizing, oh, my kids are having this experience that I had with my grandparents. And I include I conclude with the phrase safe at home. And I deliberately use that phrase because it has many different meanings. Literally there's being safe at home plate, but there's also a sense of feeling safe at home. And when you finally feel yourself at home with your family, you feel safe. And so there are different meanings to that conclusion.
Yeah, and it's interesting how and we just talked about some of the founding generations and all the big history and everything that we're going to celebrate as a nation. But I almost feel like, I've got similar things. It's these little details that stick with you. That are, I think, the one that make you feel the most safe at home. It's, it's great to reminisce about the founding, but I don't know Thomas Jefferson. I never met him.
Yeah.
But I know my grandmother and, how she, in her last Dirty Santa, even though she had a particular disease where she couldn't speak, but she was all there, and she stole the wine, Dirty Santa, from my grandmother, and that twinkle in her eye. And I always remember that final Christmas with her and how much fun and life she was having, even in her troubles. And it's stuff like that. And what you described, especially seeing it oh my goodness, my kids are experiencing what I'm experiencing. That just seems, I don't know, it matters more. It's less worldly than anything else.
It is. And there's so much wisdom embedded in our family histories. I can recall my great-grandmother, who was born in 1903, whose dad fought in the Civil War. And I spent a lot of time with her, and I remember fishing with her, and I wish I could go back, because now that I'm an adult, I have so many questions. I would love to ask her about her dad being in the Civil War. What in the world? That's access to a totally different era of history, and I would like to learn from that. Unfortunately, I can't anymore, but I did eat some really good food. I can remember her fried chicken and collard greens and mac and cheese and cornbread and all the rest. Things I can't even list because there were so many. And it was passed on to my grandmother. Of course, they thought their jobs were just to make me fat. That's all they did. I would come home from college and just eat, and it was awesome.
Yeah, and I am living with my grandfather who'll be 90 in September. And one thing I find fascinating as he reminisces, because, he remembers one of his earliest memories is he was crying in the bathroom as a little boy. I believe he was born in 1936. So he's very young. He's crying in the bathroom as a little boy because the war just broke out with Pearl Harbor, and he's worried he's going to be sent off to go fight. And he's only 5. And so see, and start the clock there of American history and everything that's happened. There are all these amazing moments, and yet when you talk to him, he's like, yeah, but it was family life. He much prefers to talk about my mom and about my uncles. And, I'm like, yeah, but where were you during the Cuban Missile Crisis? You ran a Minuteman missile out at Strategic Air Command, and that stuff's cool, but it's not, it's interesting what sticks. It isn't all these big moments that we're supposed to remember publicly.
Yeah, what else is sort of weird is I was born in 1983, and I remember growing up and seeing movies about the 1960s, reading about the 1960s, watching TV about the 1960s, and 1963 was just 20 years before I was born, and it seemed alien. It seemed like another world. Well, now I'm looking at 2026, and I'm like, well, 2006 seems like it just happened to me. I was already out of college, what? It's 2006. I was living in Japan. And 2006 is also when I started law school. It feels as if that just happened. How could that be the same amount of passage of time between now and then as it was between when I was born and the 1960s? When you start doing that, and then you keep doing it back a few more decades, it gets even more shocking. You're just like, man, we're not all that far removed from the founding generation. It sure seems alien to us in many ways, but I can pick up their English and read it, and it's great. It's wonderful prose. I recognize it. It's not like reading Chaucer, where I have to labor to figure out what Chaucer is saying in moments. But yeah, even Chaucer's not that far. I mean, heck, our written records don't go back all that far.
Right. No, and it's thank you for the long segment. I've been flying solo today. And if you got to run, I understand. But it reminds me of another takeaway I had reading J.D. Vance's book, and I think he only got like 5 years on me. And I'm noticing millennials, so to speak. I guess you'd be in the older. It's as would J.D. Vance.
I'm millennial.
Yeah, millennials, we're going through this more nostalgic, reminiscent phase where we can look back on, especially like the 90s. And there's so much. And of course, there's the novelty in the pop culture and the video games and all that stuff. But I just started to realize, like, oh, wow, the guy who might be the next president of the United States, he too in college was a bit of a drunk jerk. And he read too much Tucker Max. I hope they serve beer in hell. And it's like, oh, he also read Neil Strauss's The Game. And Ayn Rand was a big thing for his, and I'm like, wow, it's interesting to see that we're not that unique. We're all kind of swimming in the same generational stream.
Yeah, and one, I think, good thing about social media, people don't give social media very much praise, but one good thing about it is it sort of has equalized us in terms of awareness of our limitations, because at this point, we used to hold figures up as if they were just impeccable, perfect people. And maybe there was something good about that. But I think also recognizing that we're all flawed and that our flaws are very easily exposed has, in some ways, created room for solidarity and forgiveness and grace in a way that was more difficult perhaps before, when we had impossible standards by which we were measuring people, and people were obsessed with hiding their bad activity rather than just owning it and saying, look, I did this, whatever. I always, I was not a big fan of a lot of things that George W. Bush did when he was president, but I always really respected him when he said, look, when I was young, this is what I did. This is how I behaved. And I wish I hadn't, but I'm owning it. And I really respected that.
Yeah. And I think we're going to need more of that, because, and maybe that's a good thing. It'll defang sort of the Oppo research aspect of politics, to where, I mean, everything's so public that, and, again, we're more on the older end of like this young generation coming up. Like the amount of stuff that's documented, like you're going to have to say mea culpa, mea max culpa. Like it's just, you're like, this is, sorry, I wish I was different. And I'm hoping more and more folks will show each other grace, or we're going to rip each other apart. There's too much ammunition.
Yeah, I can't wait to figure out what historians will be doing 300, 400 years from now with our stuff and our digital footprint, because now we go through, someone's letters, and we go through maybe whatever their banknotes say, and maybe some legal documents here and there. But I mean, there's the potential for someone to get into your laptop and pull your cache data and pull all this. Like, who knows what types of biographies are going to be written in a few hundred years about us? I don't know. It's pretty incredible.
Well, Alan, this 30 minutes or so has flown by. If folks want to check out your work, your writing, what you're up to, how can they do so?
Just alanmendenhall.com is the best way to do it, Joey. I recently had someone go in there and update the website, so it's ready to go. It's got a lot of ads on it right now, so feel free to click on those. But but yeah, that's where it is.
Well, appreciate it, Alan, and we'll talk again soon. Have a happy 4th of July.
You too, Joey.
Again, folks, Alan Mendenhall, always appreciate his time. We got to hit a break here. But first, this entire hour brought to you by Alabama Home Mortgage. And there at Alabama Home Mortgage, Kim Williams and Madeline Cannon are ready to help you with buying a home, especially if you're a first-time home buyer. They can walk you through the purchase process and make it, where you have no surprises, especially no surprises on closing day. It all starts with pre-approval. You do not want to skip that first step, or you're setting yourself up for heartbreak. But instead, they'll make sure you get pre-approved. Here's how much home you can afford. Go out and shop with confidence. Sellers will take you seriously. And on closing day, will be there before you know it, once you find that home of yours that you want to purchase. Or, of course, you could be wanting a refinance deal. And there are a lot of reasons to refinance, from restructuring debt to you want to go on the dream vacation or reinvest in your property or your family. and they can help you out there. And of course, they specialize in helping veterans. Parts of the VA system are broken, but not the VA mortgage. That remains one of the strongest home financing options available, and there are a lot of veterans that still haven't taken advantage of these benefits they earn through their service. So things like no down payment purchases and 100% cash out refinances. If you're a veteran, get in touch with Alabama Home Mortgage. At least see what your options are. 567-4223 is that number. That's 567-4223. Or you can always apply online at myalabamahomemortgage.com. They'll get in touch with you real quick after you fill out those online forms. There is a difference in mortgage companies. Let Kim and Madeline prove that to you today. NMLS number 1586368, an equal housing lender.
Want to carry News Talk in your pocket? Download the News Talk 93.1 app from the App Store. Available on iPhone and Android. Never miss a moment. Download now.
Starting a business shouldn't feel overwhelming. At Janneycombe Gulf Coast, we give you a clear, proven path to ownership. You receive guaranteed initial counts, local support, and the training you need to succeed from day one. For over 35 years, we've helped people turn steady careers into thriving businesses, and you could be next. Start your journey today at JanneyCombeCleans.com.
Hi, this is Bo Goodson from the Goodson Group with your Real Estate Minute. 5 reasons to get a home inspection before you close on a home. Homeowners buying their first home or their 10th home still need a home inspection performed. First, you will find out firsthand the true condition of the home, the age and state of the heating and air, the roof, electrical, and plumbing as of the date of inspection. Second, it may give you the ability to renegotiate repairs that the seller will end up paying for before closing. Third, if the results show that the repairs would be too costly, then you can opt out of the contract without losing your earnest money. Fourth, the age and state of the systems will indicate what shape the rest of the house might be in and give you the option to opt out of the transaction or renegotiate terms. Fifth, knowing what needs to be done to the house will allow you the opportunity to update the home properly to your taste. For a list of the best home inspectors in the area, call Bo Goodson at the Goodson Group at 334-221-2883 or 551-0225. The Goodson Group.
Yes?
Yeah, I'm Bill. You called about some breaker stripping?
Oh, yes, Bill. My brother-in-law says you can do almost anything.
That's me. Not much I hadn't seen.
Do you really want someone who does almost anything in your electric box? Think about that, because each year thousands of home fires are caused by faulty wiring. That's why you want a professional, like the electricians at Crosby Electric.
Bill, how's it going? Bill, ooh, are you okay?
Oh, yeah, well, I didn't really need my eyebrows anyway.
At Crosby Electric, all technicians undergo rigorous safety training, as well as background checks, drug testing, and continuing education.
Bill, you think maybe I should call a real electrician?
No, these little slip-ups happen. Everybody does it.
Really?
No, not really. When you need professional electric work, or you just like someone to assess your home for safety, call the experts at Crosby Electric, 272-2085, or visit us at crosbyelectric.com.
Are you tired of the mainstream media's biased reporting? Do you want to stay informed on the news that really matters to you? Look no further than 1819 News. At 1819 News, we bring you the latest in Alabama news, politics, sports, culture, and more. We've assembled a team of journalists with Alabama values dedicated to the truth and the truth alone. Visit us at 1819news.com today. That's 1819news.com. Subscribe to our newsletter. Honest News, Alabama Values.
What's your biggest investment? More than likely, it's your home. So treat it that way when you hire a painting contractor. With PBS Painting, there are no gimmicks, no $99 specials. Just quality painting and someone who treats your home with the same respect that you do. At PBS Painting, we have been painting for years and look forward to many more years to come. With PBS Painting, the job gets prepped properly, whether it's cleaning, scraping, or priming. We always use quality products, which is a must for a quality paint job. So if you're looking for a painter that doesn't need upfront money and is on the job at all times, then please give me a call. Scott Bowers and PBS Painting, 294-5122. That's PBS Painting, 294-5122. Look at some of our work on Facebook at PBS Painting Montgomery.
Trust is the number one reason why a patient chooses a healthcare provider. Adams Drugs has been your trusted healthcare provider since 1962 and has been voted the number one pharmacy in the River region for many years. We strive each and every day to provide you the level of healthcare you have come to expect from Adams Drugs. The employees at Adams Drugs take pride in developing relationships with their patients, from making sure your prescriptions are filled correctly to getting to know you and your family's needs and following up on any questions you may have. Adams Drugs employees deliver top-notch service. We ask you to visit us at any of our locations in Montgomery, Prattville, Wetumpka, Millbrook, and Pine Level Marbury and give us a chance to earn your business. You can find us at adamsdrugs.net for the location that is nearest to you. Adams Drugs is your local, independently owned Health Mart pharmacy. Health Mart, taking the time to listen and care.
This hour of news and views is brought to you by our good friends at Alabama Home Mortgage. Alabama Home Mortgage, 567-4223. Visit them on the web at myalabamahomemortgage.com. NMLS number 1586368, an equal housing lender.
The Rich Thomas Weather Network, brought to you by Montgomery Paint and Body. From little fender benders to total body repair, MPB will fix it good as new, maybe better. For 4 decades, the Turner family has been getting you back on the road. Call 279-7325.
Rich Thomas weather.
Well, hi, everybody. We're not just talking about heat this week. We're talking about some dangerous heat indices. Mostly sunny today, high temperature up to about 97, heat index in the 105 to 110 danger range. Even very muggy and oppressive at night with the overnight low temperature down to about 77. I think we're easily in the mid-90s again tomorrow. Maybe a few spotty storms here and there, but not many. In fact, most days this week should be dry. And through at least the 4th of July, we're looking at triple-digit heat indices with actual highs at least in the mid-90s. From the Blue Water Weather Center, this is Rich Thomas.
When the heat hits to the river region, don't wait. If your AC quits, Hands Heating and Air offers same-day service, or your diagnostic charge is free with their Comfort a Day or You Don't Pay guarantee, plus 24/7 service with no overtime charges.
Trustworthy, accurate, immediate. Carrying your voice across the river region. News Talk 93.1 FM WACV.
Joey Clark.
Welcome back. Now, put into pseudo-local story, but it has to do with federal legislation and the opposing votes that the two senators that for now represent the state of Alabama, Tuberville and Britt, split on their support for this housing bill, this big housing bill that is still in limbo because Trump said, pass the SAVE Act already, and then I'll sign your stupid little housing bill, your bipartisan thing that Pocahontas started. Well, it looks like Mike Johnson is starting to press the president's hand, by the way, and starting the constitutional clock, triggering that, well, you better go ahead, Senate, and officially work on this. Before we go into Britt and Tuberville defending their different votes on this, but on Sunday, Republican Speaker of the House Mike Johnson indicated the housing bill President Trump refused to sign last week will be placed on the president's desk on Monday. He would send a bipartisan housing affordability bill to the president on Monday, the days after the Republican president refused to sign the bill until a divisive voting rights measures was passed. Divisive, huh? It's passed by both chambers. I'm sending it to him on Monday, and it will become law, Johnson, a Republican from Louisiana, said in a televised interview. President Trump canceled a signing ceremony for this bill on Wednesday. As of this writing, it's not clear that he has agreed to sign or veto the bill on Monday. So this, according to all the recent polling, an overwhelming popular notion among the American public is the SAVE Act. But that hasn't stopped congressional Democrats from maintaining a knee-jerk opposition to the Save America Act. But the housing bill will become law with or without the president's signature, unless he vetoes it, which doesn't seem likely. This is fascinating. The Constitution in Article 1, Section 7, Clause 2 makes it plain that even if the president declines to sign, it will still become law. If any bill shall not be returned by the president within 10 days, Sundays excepted, We are a Christian nation, ain't we? After it shall have been presented to him, so 10 days after it shall have been presented to him, the same law shall be a law in like manner as if he had signed it, unless the Congress by their adjournment prevent its return, in which case it shall not be a law. Speaker Johnson, however, did also express some optimism on the possibility of passage of the Save America Act. So we'll see, but Johnson has started the constitutional clock, so to speak. And we'll see if Trump actually outright vetoes this thing. He might say, I know there are a lot of people who like it, but Pocahontas is the root of this. I don't like that fake Indian. But both sides here in Alabama on this issue continue defending their votes on federal housing legislation that drew opposing votes from Tuberville and Britt. Last week, Britt and Tuberville cast their votes for the bipartisan-backed 21st Century Road to Housing Act, touted as reforming and cutting regulatory red tape in the Department of Housing and Urban Development, otherwise known as HUD, programs. A move supporters claim will address the nation's housing supply shortage. The bill passed the Senate last Monday 85-5, with Britt voting in favor and Tuberville joining U.S. Senators Rick Scott, Ron Johnson, Rand Paul, and Mike Lee in voting against. The bill was slated for President Trump's signature on Friday. However, again, Trump canceled that signing, saying, we got to pass the SAVE Act first, then I'll sign your stupid legislation. In the meantime, Tuberville has defended his no vote, claiming that the bill would not help the middle class. Rather, Tuberville claims the legislation would continue to provide federal housing benefits to illegal aliens. We're $39 trillion in debt, Tuberville told Fox News. We're giving more money to a department that to me is just pushing money out the door, and we don't know where it goes most of the time. Right now, most of it's probably going to illegals living in this country. It's not going to help the middle class. And if it helps the middle class, I'd be all in. But I think this is a bill that might touch a little bit of the middle class, but it's going to a lot of people that are here illegally to build houses for them. There have been proven examples of illegal aliens receiving HUD benefits, such as the so-called non-permanent residents receiving Federal Housing Administration insured mortgages, and in cases of mixed status households where a DHS audit showed that HUD estimated around 24,000 illegal aliens, ineligibles, or fraudsters benefited across roughly 20,000 mixed status households. Federal law also bars turning away illegals from accessing HUD's Emergency Solutions Grants, ESG, for emergency and short-term housing. Since Trump's election, however, many of these avenues have been closed, with the administration announcing efforts to roll back loopholes allowed by previous leadership. Senator Britt contends that the housing bill would help American families, giving more citizens the ability to pursue home ownership, a reality of former generations that continues to grow more illusory for younger families each year. She believes this housing bill makes meaningful changes to address our nation's affordable housing crisis, including helping move more people from government dependence to economic independence, helping disabled veterans access crucial housing assistance, modernizing outdated federal manufactured housing requirements to reduce costs, and helping preserve housing access for more than 400,000 rural families, Britt's team said in response to a question or questions from 1819 News. The Britt team response continued, quote, importantly, the bill does not appropriate any new funds, and nothing in this legislation creates a new housing benefit for illegal aliens. While there is still more work to be done to ensure young families have an opportunity to own a home and reverse Biden-era mass migration policies. In the response, Britt's team highlighted her bona fides as a combatant of illegal immigration, especially while serving under the Trump administration. President Trump received a mandate from the American people to repeal the Biden administration's dangerous open border America Last policies, the response continued. His first bill signed into law, Senator Britt's Laken-Riley Act, was just the first step to strengthen border security and interior immigration enforcement in our nation and put American citizens first. As chair of the Subcommittee on Homeland Security Appropriations, she, Britt, has continued her efforts to crack down on illegal immigration with the introduction of the mandatory E-Verify Act of 2026 to eliminate the largest magnet for illegal immigration. So, there's probably a lot of devil in the details of that massive bill. Like, there's probably stuff that's well-intentioned that are going to have unintended consequences. There's probably stuff that's a little bit rotten that somebody's going to make a lot of money off of, and it won't necessarily accrue to the general benefit of the population. And I'm sure on the margins, it's going to be able to help a lot of folks too. I mean, you would hope spending that much money. Well, there's no new appropriations in it, but you would hope with that amount of money going out the door through housing and urban development, it benefits some people's lives. But I don't know. It's just interesting whenever our two senators split on an issue, but overwhelmingly 85-5. Yeah, we'll see what the future brings when it comes to American housing. I think Trump's right, though. And it's not just Trump. I think this is just a better way of looking at it. Instead of, working at the nuances of regulatory frameworks and all the loopholes at HUD and yada, 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 what if you brought down interest rates? I think that would help everybody. I think that would help the housing market greatly if interest rates were brought down a bit, just a bit. Of course, you could say the president, then why did you start that war? We had to. They can never have a nuclear weapon. Okay, you sound like the Pope. There's worse things to sound like. We'll be right back after this.
He may not know whether he's coming or going, but whether you're going to work or coming home, Greg Budell is there. Mornings 6 till 9 and afternoons 3 till 6. Only on News Talk 93.1 FM WACV.
We get a lot of questions about what all we handle at Hannah and Eddie Realty Group. I'm Hannah Grantham.
And I'm Eddie Bader, and we will handle all of your real estate needs.
We handle all your buying and selling needs, from your first home, next home, land, investment property, and even commercial properties.
We do it all and have the experience that shows you what makes us different.
So when you think real estate, think Hannah and Eddie Realty Group. Look us up on Facebook or give us a call at 334-368-6358. And let us show you who you have on your sign matters.
This is your roving reporter. Today I'm talking with a man from outer space.
What's up, Earthling?
I see you've landed your spacecraft over there in that field.
That's right, man.
My question is, why have you landed here on our planet?
I came to see David Ernest.
The asset preservationist?
Yeah, man. I wanted to see if he would take a look at my portfolio for me.
Well, before you make the trip over there, call him on his toll-free number, 833-596-7233.
And I understand those last 4 digits spell out the word safe.
That is correct.
Funny thing happened the last time I came to Earth.
What was that?
I went to the Walmart, man.
Yes?
And I accidentally went in the back door.
How did that work out?
Well, they stopped me and very gently told me that I needed to go around front and come in.
And then what did you do?
I said, cool, man. Take me to your greeter.
You flew millions of miles just for that.
Hey, man, I don't write them. I just read them.
This hour of news and views is brought to you by our good friends at Alabama Home Mortgage. Alabama Home Mortgage, 567-4223. Visit them on the web at myalabamahomemortgage.com. NMLS number 1586368, an equal housing lender.
Headlines the mainstream media won't touch. Your News Talk station. News Talk 93.1 FM WACV.
Joey Clark.
Welcome back. Normally we talk to Michael Cohen at this time, but he is busy with a customer, which is always a good thing to hear from a sponsor. So if y'all are looking for great products, of course, on the electronic side of the house, from big old TVs, projector systems, massage chairs, great sound, surround sound audio systems, all sorts of audio solutions, especially like outdoor setups, or the appliance side of things, or maybe looking for a big grill or a new washer dryer unit, new refrigerator. They can help you there at Cohen's. And because the products are great, they have an awesome selection, but the service really makes the difference. The service is amazing, including long after the sale. That's why Cohen's been around for almost 70 years. It's because through the generations, they actually get to know people and have people's back and really stand by the products they sell. and are looking to help folks out, whether it's first setting something up or, maybe down the road something goes wrong with that washer you bought from Cohen's. They'll still take your call and look to help you out. So check out Cohen's today. You can always learn more at thinkcohens.com, but I really encourage you to stop by. Go see him in person at 2515 Eastern Boulevard here in Montgomery, just off of off the Eastern Boulevard. And they're open 9 to 6 Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 on Saturdays. And be sure to tell them that Joey, that fellow on the radio, sent you. Let's go to Sam. Hey, Sam, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Sitting here in the sun, about to go in and see my doctor and whatnot. But, Joey, I've really been enjoying the show. Oh, I dang sure. There's a good, fine conversation as I was coming down to 231, and do appreciate it. Let me just a couple things real quick. As a Christian, we have a lot of distractions.
Yeah.
That's when I was thinking of, then that's, I can't go to church today because it's interfering with my video game time, my getting high time, my this time, my that time. Yeah, there's all kind of excuses to interfere with being in touch with God. That's why I always like to point out prayer. There's daggone it, Sam. Peter said, pray unceasingly and be in prayer. I swear, prayer, talking to God works. It just in little ways that the conversations will come back.
It's an interesting thing in that J.D. Vance book. Vance admitted as he started to think, well, I should pray more. He didn't know how to do it. It had been so long. So part of why he liked the Catholic is there are so many pre-written prayers, and some that were written only 100 years ago, but they sound thousands of years old. In particular, he loved the St. Michael prayer, which is that's most men like the St. Michael prayer.
I'm no Barbie. I'm no Barbie or Bible. I'm no Bible scholar. Dang, excuse me. But occasionally I've read through the Psalms and whatnot, and you find just beautifully written passages. Reason I called that. Now, I also just wanted to share. If I was going to talk seriously about this housing bill, I would start to compare it to what happened to us with the student loan program and that bill. Everyone needs access to education, and suddenly the government's giving out these. Even the elderly figured it out. Remember, it was like 10 years ago or 20 years, the elderly were like, I'm 80 years old, I got me some student loans, I ain't paying them back. So anyway, the tent maker, that's what I was getting to. This is a housing crisis. Well, there's no tent crisis. So I figure it's the tent makers. They're going to be, because, did you hear the, now I'm being silly, but in all serious, the Alligator Alley closed a couple days ago.
No.
The detention camp. Yes, sir. They have that $1 billion. I mean, they can go in and turn the power back on if they need it. But the detention center in Florida, are we running out of time?
Yeah, we kind of are.
Yeah, I'm rambling. That's it. The tent industry is the one that's going to make out on that, brother.
Yeah.
You can cut me loose at any second after that.
I appreciate it, Sam. Good call, and safe travels still.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We got to hit this top of the hour break. Be right back after this. You want to get in the final hour? 272-9228.
Broadcasting from the Riverside Chevrolet Master Control Center, this is WACV Cusana, News Talk 93.1 FM. When it's Chevy, it's Riverside.
With SRN News, I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. The Supreme Court has begun releasing decisions on court cases prior to the summer recess, and there was one result out today in which they found that the state of Mississippi could indeed count ballots that are sent in by mail up to 5 days after Election Day, provided that they were marked on time and were otherwise authenticated. A new AP poll finds that Americans have grown less proud of the country's history or the way its democracy works over the past several years. And that's pride in the U.S., depending on what party you're in, however. About 70% of Republicans said in that poll that they are extremely proud to be Americans. Only 14% of Democrats said the same. That's what took the average down so low. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is booming, up 362 points at this hour, and the high-tech NASDAQ up 451. This is SRN News.
Spring is here, and if you're staring at a home improvement project, wondering how you're going to pay for it, or looking at a big credit card bill piling up, I want you to know about my friends Mike and Brian and the team at Fellowship Home Loans. For over 20 years, Mike and Brian have been helping families like yours tap into something they already have, equity in their own home, a HELOC, a cash-out refi, a debt consolidation loan to wipe out those high-interest credit cards. Whatever fits your situation, Fellowship Home Loans will build it around you. Everything's done in-house, one roof, one team, all with a servant-led mentality. From your very first phone call to closing, you're going to get people who know your name and treat you like family. I know, I'm a customer. Right now, they're offering a free mortgage checkup, no pressure, just a real look at your options. Go to fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, or call 800-510 Mike, 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, DBA Fellowship Home Loans, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 8193.
Rich Thomas Weather is brought to you by Victoryland. Victoryland Casinos, crowning $25K free play giveaway. The more you visit, the more chances you have to win. Victoryland Casino, where you can be a winner too.
Rich Thomas Weather.
Well, hi, everybody. We're not just talking about heat this week. We're talking about some dangerous heat indices. Mostly sunny today. High temperature up to about 97. Heat index in the 105 to 110 danger range. Even very muggy and oppressive at night with the overnight low temperature down to about 77. I think we're easily in the mid-90s again tomorrow. Maybe a few spotty storms here and there, but not many. In fact, most days this week should be dry. And through at least the 4th of July, we're looking at triple-digit heat indices with actual highs at least in the mid-90s. From the Blue Water Weather Center, this is Rich Thomas.
1819 News.
The steering committee for the Alabama Republican Party met this past Sunday to consider yet another residency challenge against John Wall as he runs in the lieutenant governor's race. That challenge is coming from another Republican in Limestone County who believes that the issue needs to be considered now so that Democrats are not able to disqualify Wall closer to the November elections. The challenge comes from Tim Calling and has to do with Wall having obtained a Tennessee driver's license. Alabama law requires 7 years of residency before running for state office. Wall admits to having a residence in Tennessee, but also says he has evidence that he has lived in Alabama for the required 7 years. The steering committee voted 14-4 to not proceed further with this challenge by holding a full hearing, as was done recently in the Tommy Tuberville residency case. I'll be back with more Alabama stories after this.
Are you enjoying 1819 News? If so, consider joining 1819 News as a member. As a nonprofit news organization, we depend on the support of Alabamians like you. Memberships start out as little as $5 a month, and you'll get access to exclusive content only offered to our members. You'll be supporting independent journalism done by people who cherish Alabama values. Become a member today by visiting 1819news.com and clicking Become a Member. That's 1819news.com and click Become a Member today.
Patients at Huntsville Hospital are being notified of a data breach that allowed access to their personal health information. The breach occurred with a third-party system that holds health records for the hospital. The breach occurred last year with Cerner Systems and the data that they had stored on their system. Apparently, the delayed announcement of this data breach was to help investigators in this case. I'm Andrea Tice.
For more news affecting Alabamians, go to 1819news.com. And while you're there, subscribe to the daily newsletter.
This hour of News and Views is brought to you by our good friends at Cole Plumbing, 279-8919. Cole Plumbing is number one in the number two business. You don't have to dig a hole. They have proprietary pipelining technology. Ask them about their tankless water heaters. Remember, when you have trouble with your bowl, call on Cole.
You want your floors to scream new, fresh, and stylish. But if yours are groaning, tired, old, and outdated, you're in luck. Because at Prattville Carpet, you can revitalize your floors while you save on the best brands available with perfect and professional installation and Prattville's unbeatable lifetime warranty.
Hi, I'm Ray Bowles from Prattville Carpet. If you're looking for carpet, hardwood, laminate, vinyl plank, or ceramic tile, call us today for your free measurement.
Start shopping for your floors right now at PrattvilleCarpet.com.
Prattville Carpet, we're more than just carpet.
Please be advised, you may want to stop eating the following foods immediately: broccoli, kale, bean sprouts, blueberries, quinoa, spinach.
Wait, what? I thought those were good for me.
Turns out not for everyone, because what's healthy for one person can cause inflammation for another. And the only way to really know what your body needs is to listen to it.
Listen how?
That's where Viome comes in. Viome is a simple, at-home gut health test that looks at your body's real-time biology using RNA to understand what's happening inside you right now. When your results come in, you'll learn exactly which foods to eat, which to avoid, and which supplements are right for you, all based on the world's largest RNA-based human biology database and thousands of clinical research studies. And many people who use Viome report more energy, better digestion, and a better mood within months. So stop guessing. Start knowing. Learn more at Viome.com/gut. V as in Victor, IOME.com/GUT. And use coupon code GUTHEALTH50 to save $50 off your purchase. Viome. Trust your gut.
The views and opinions of the following program are solely those of the host and other contributors. These do not necessarily represent those of Liberty Acquisitions 825, Blue Water Broadcasting, its management, staff, or any advertisers. It's time for Montgomery's conversational radio show. It's news and views on News Talk 93.1 FM. To join the conversation, call 272-9228.
Joey Clark.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Joey Clark. Final hour of the program. You want to get in on the conversation? 334-272-9228. That's 334-272-9228. Let's go to the phones and talk to Babs. Hey, Babs, how you doing?
Good afternoon, Joey. I'm doing good. You know, I listen to your program almost every day. There's a couple of days I'm out of reach.
Mm-hmm.
But I listened to a rerun yesterday, and I'm going to assume it was from one of the days I didn't get to listen to you. But I'm calling in defense of Mr. David Matthews.
Yeah.
And I wanted to tell you, well, first of all, you know there's 6 people running for that.
And this is the guy, for folks who don't know what you're talking about, who put out an 11-minute video where he started getting quite emotional and crying when talking about how Trump endorsed another guy, and he seemed very emotional about his family.
And I think he must have made that video when he realized that President Trump didn't endorse him.
Right.
Because, you know, he worked in the campaign. He worked under President Trump. I really don't remember what he was doing. But he came to speak at the Republican ladies meeting in Montgomery last Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And he was very on point. He was very elegant speaking.
Mm-hmm.
I was very impressed, and he gave great information, and I was really impressed. Now, I can't vote, because I'm in problem, and but
that makes that video all the worse. And I wouldn't deny it. I suspect what you're saying is incredibly true. I'm sure he's a very smart guy.
He is. He was amazing, and I told him that I don't even remember how it came about, because I'm going to speak to all these candidates if I can. But I told him that I listened to 93.1 all the time, and he got a little book out and wrote that down, and I'm hoping maybe he'll call and defend himself. But he was just down to earth and, like I said, super smart. He's got to be super smart if you read his bio. But
well, and he doesn't have to defend himself. Like, if he wants to talk about why he'd be best for being a member of Congress, I'm cool with that. And I mean, I would just be straight up with him. I don't think that video was a great first impression. It was kind of like, and it made me it made me have more questions, like on a personal basis, like, what's going on with your family, man? It seems like, I think it made me like him and also go, what's going on here? Like, I don't know. More questions.
I still think he must have just recently found out that Trump didn't support him.
Yeah.
But I wanted to tell you, too, at that meeting, Hampton Harris was there.
Mm-hmm.
And he told Hampton, he said, if I win this position, I'm taking you with me as my second man. And Harris said, ditto, buddy.
All right.
And I just wish he would come on and try to explain, because that was not the same man that I saw last Thursday. Of course, it was a different setup and everything. But I just had to call in because it really upset me. I was very, very impressed with him. And if I could vote, I'd vote for him in a heartbeat.
No, I appreciate that defense, and we've had Hampton on the show. Happy to have David on the show. Happy to have the guy Trump endorsed, Rhett, on the show. But
I never even, well, of course, I haven't heard of hardly any of these people, but anyway. All right. Well, thank you for letting me have my say-so. And Mr. Matthews, make an effort to call and talk to Joey.
Well, I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joey, for letting me come on.
Love you.
Love you guys. Bye.
272-9228. It was just, I can be of split minds. Like, I can look at something as, I don't know this person. Let's see what this video is all about. And I was like, oh, my goodness, what is this? I would have told him to delete that and not put that out there if I was advising him. But, and it's often the case. There are plenty of brilliant men of character that sometimes don't have the connections, which I think is the number one thing at play with the Trump endorsement in this race. They don't have the connections. I think I said that in that segment. Sorry, you didn't grow up as Senator Britt's neighbor. But there's also an element, and I think about it a lot, that is this the best system for actually finding men and women, but men of character? Sometimes. But there are a lot of brilliant men of character who could be great statesmen who really are boring if you tell them to give a speech. They come across there isn't that fire in the belly that gets you going when you see them in an ad or on an interview appearance. And sometimes I just worry that a lot of our system is based more on those non-rational aspects than it is on, the true character and intelligence of the folks. Now, you can't have the total package where across the board, you got somebody with that fire in the belly and that charisma, that X factor, who, along with the character and the smarts. But sometimes it's a rough and tumble game. I've seen too many of these races where a lot of folks put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and money. And something as simple as connections and more money means you ain't got it, man. And there's only so many seats. There are only so many seats of Congress Alabama sends up there. And these things sometimes work out in a way where it's like, well, that's disappointing. But, you got your whole life. Seem like you got a beautiful family. Go live that life. If you're a talented fella, you'll get right on your feet, land on your feet. 272-9228. That's 334-272-9228. Oh my. There's a story that just came out at 1819news.com by Caleb Taylor. If you're not familiar with that name, Caleb Taylor is covering all things Montgomery and the river region. And an old familiar face and name. Now, I'm just seeing this headline, just seeing this story, so let's read it together, folks. Longtime talk radio host Kevin Elkins is running in the upcoming special election for Montgomery City Council District 3. The Montgomery City Council voted unanimously on Tuesday, of course, to vacate Marcia Johnson from her District 3 seat because she does not live in the district. Candidate qualifying for the special election will begin on Tuesday and remain open through the 14th of July. A special election for District 3 will be held on September the 1st. No candidate receives the required number of votes, then there will be a runoff election that will be held on October 13th. Kevin Elkins told 1819 News on Monday he expects probably 8 or 9 people to run for the seat. Nobody has a guarantee of the seat. Nobody owns the seat. The seat belongs to the people. What you won't hear from me is a lot of platitudes because everybody says the same crap all the time, Elkins said. That's right, sir. Elkins, a U.S. Army veteran, said he wanted to run for the seat for a while, but couldn't while working in the radio industry because of FCC regulations. He now has his own podcast. I would have ran a long time ago, but since I had the privilege and pleasure of being a talk show host for 34 years, they wouldn't let me run unless I quit my job. Well, nobody can make me quit my job on the podcast. Now I can finally do it since the opportunity did come up, and I actually live in District 3, Elkins said. My biggest deal is the lack of humility in public service today. People act like they are doing us a favor by serving. When you go down to a city council meeting, not only in Montgomery, but all over the place, people look over those glasses from their high perch on the city council seat and look at you like you're not worthy of being in front of them. Pardon me, they're blowing something right outside the studio wall. There's no plants out there. They do this every few weeks. There's literally nothing out there to weed eat, to blow. There are no clippings. There's no shrubbery of any sort. Just earning a paycheck. Now back to Kevin Elkins. Humility is something that keeps you teachable no matter what position you have or how much you have. I just think sometimes logic and reason has gone out of politics. I'm so sick and tired of the black and white issue. Amen, brother. I don't know what to do. Every decision is somehow tempered with it's us against them. And if they're black, they're this way, and white, they're this way. I'm strictly a down-the-middle guy. If it makes sense, let's do it. If it don't make sense, let's not do it. I just think sometimes you run for office saying all these things that you're going to do and realize that one man on the city council can't do anything unless he has the cooperation of the majority. Elkins continued, I want to bring some common sense and some humility back into politics. I won't be thinking about politics when I make my decisions. I won't be thinking about getting reelected. It'll be about what's good for us and the people. It's a humanitarian thing for me. Just make sure everybody gets a fair shot. We give money away every year to different organizations that come before the council, and we've been giving the same money to the same people for years, and guess what? A lot of things haven't changed. It may be time to erase the list and let other people try their ideas. Let's fund some of them. Elkins said he wanted to use retired police officers to improve staffing levels at the Montgomery Police Department, saying, quote, I've come up with a solution to the lack of police officers if I can get it implemented, and that is take any retired policeman and make him what the military calls a warrant officer. What a warrant officer is, he's an officer that's not above lieutenant, but he's above sergeant, Elkins said. In this case, it won't affect his retirement pay or anything. He goes on as an hourly worker, and as a warrant officer, he only answers to the chief of police. It helps us out for the time being. Okay. Best of luck to Kevin Elkins. And yeah, there's probably going to be a bunch of folks hopping into that seat. But I hope they all live in District 3. So it'd be a shame if we had to do this all over again. Now, the top trending story on 1819 News is about a big bearded man. No, not Brian Dawson. This man's even bigger. Wesley Britt, husband of U.S. Senator Katie Britt, named Executive VP of 68 Ventures. Wesley is joining Gulf Coast Development Company 68 Ventures as the new executive vice president and member of the company's executive leadership team. 68 Ventures, based in Daphne, Alabama, is the parent company for multiple development and investment businesses along the Gulf Coast. Founder and chairman Nathan Cox, president Adam Campbell, and CEO Drew Dolan welcome Britt to the team, saying they expect the move to advance their growth across the Southeast. Wesley and I have talked for years about the possibility of working together full time, and I am completely confident this is the right opportunity at the right time, said Cox. We are fired up to welcome him to our executive leadership team as we continue carrying out our purpose to see all we can do with all we have been given. Britt said 68 Ventures has built one of the most dynamic and respected organizations in the Southeast. What Nathan, Adam, Drew, and the entire team have created is truly remarkable. The company's entrepreneurial culture, long-term vision, and commitment to making a positive impact in the communities it serves aligns closely with my own values. And, of course, there were fine things said by Joe Fine of Fine Getty and Associates, which is where Wesley Britt is leaving. Joe Fine wished him success in his role. Cox said after knowing Britt for more than 25 years, he is confident the senator's husband will be successful in his new role. Yeah, I suspect he will be. Apparently they went to the University of Alabama together. Now, somebody, a little bird put in my ear, what if 68 Ventures got into the White Water Park game? If you want the water park to work, maybe not only does a big, say, development team with a lot of connections take it over, but you make Wesley Britt the face of Montgomery's Whitewater Park. Like, you don't have to run it and stuff. It's just he's the spokesman. I think it could work. I didn't come up with this idea. Somebody told me this idea. I said, get out of town. And then I thought about it for a second. And I'm like, I think that would work. The senator's husband, the big man. Yeah, I think it would be a good fit. Because we need something. Or it's just going to end up the latest property owned by the Porch Creek Indians. That's where it's heading, at least. Anyway, 272-9228. For some reason, that's the top trending story at 1819 News, because everybody's wondering, why can't we get those elite gigs? Well, maybe you don't have the connection. I can't get a gig like that because I'm still a child, really. But, like, I don't know. I read the description of that. I'm like, I'm not even sure what that is. Like, what I do, I talk and write. It's pretty straightforward. I'm not sure what it is to fully develop a business plan because, again, I'm a child. 272-9228 if you want to get in on the conversation. That's 334-272-9228. Oh, wow. A former imam, former Huntsville Islamic Academy imam? He was a part-time lecturer at the University of Alabama, Huntsville. Calls for bloodshed to spread Islam. Huh. That's not very peaceful. A former imam at Huntsville's Islamic Academy and current part-time lecturer at the University of Alabama in Huntsville is demanding Muslims sacrifice their blood to spread Islam throughout America. Ragab Abdelmonem Ragab, the Academy's first full-time imam, began his religious career as a cleric at the Liverpool Islamic Academy in 2009. Good soccer club. That's all I'll say about Liverpool. In 2013, after teaching and graduating from Al-Azhar University in Cairo, Egypt, Ragab relocated to the academy in Huntsville. Approximately 8 years later, in 2021, he joined University of Huntsville's comms department as a part-time lecturer specializing in public speaking courses. The same year, he was also hired as a part-time comms instructor for Jimison High School's College Academy program. Ragab's educational background is extensive, with a clear lean towards Islam. Well, he is an imam. He holds a PhD in religious communication and information sciences from the University of Alabama, a master's in religious communication from UAH, and a master's in Islamic education and psychology from Al-Azhar University. In a now widely circulated video on social media, Ragab called for Muslims to expand Sharia law by any means necessary, including through bloodshed. Quote, we need to have some people to love their religion and to sacrifice for the religion, sacrifice their money and their blood and their wealth for the sake of Allah, he said in the message. A number of Ragab's sermons criticizing the United States and its residents are available online through his YouTube channel. In one video, the cleric attacked America's elected officials, accusing them of stigmatizing Muslims and minorities. Corrupt and wicked politicians, leaders, and officials, they propagate and perpetuate this kind of hatred in their discourse, in their rhetoric, in their comms, in the media, just to demonize and put people down and to stigmatize Muslims and minorities. I don't want to stigmatize anybody. I just think it's not true. Like, it's one of the weirdest Christian heresies that has gained traction. Of course, he also, he's doing the classic, I'll just read it. You yourself and your ancestors and your grandfathers, they are minorities and immigrants. They came and took over this land, especially in the United States in the Western camp. They took over the land from the original people and native people. So it should be taken again. The United States, according to Ragab, has committed injustices against Muslims throughout the world for decades. It's very rare to find any nation or any country. They are strong, powerful, and also just, and they have justice, he said in another one of his sermons. Why? Because if they have power, they immediately will commit injustices. We see that in this country. That's probably just a human thing, man. And I wonder which religion and which cultural tradition based in the foundations of religion better promotes peace. Ragab also bashed Americans in some of his sermons, arguing the group holds unfair hatred and animosity for Islam, specifically referencing the ongoing fight from Texans to block Sharia law-based communities in their state. Mm-hmm. The American people developed a lot of attitudes, including hatred, animosity against the Muslim Ummah, against the community, and against Islam itself. You can see what happened to our brothers and sisters in Dallas. They have a project, and they have a lot of challenges, legal challenges, because it will be the Sharia area. Yeah, no, the Constitution's supreme law of the land here. Like, that shouldn't be controversial. As part of a separate message, he pushed Muslims to follow their religious commandments and stand against non-believers in the United States. Allah told us about how to protect yourselves from their thinking, how to expose their plans and their plotting, how to be against them and stand against those people. Ragab is now the imam and resident scholar at the Islamic Center of Maryland, but retains connections to the Huntsville area through UAH. So that's just lovely. I suppose what I should do as a Christian is pray for that man. Perhaps, especially as a Catholic, maybe Our Lady, Mother Mary, will visit him in a dream and show him the error of his ways. If not Jesus himself. But yeah. My basic practical point of view on the whole Islam question in the United States is maybe we need to restrict how many more folks can come in. And then, yes, let's make clear that the supreme law of the land is the Constitution. If you try to find something that usurps that supremacy, even if you claim a certain religious authority to do so in private, good luck with that. Good luck with that. 272-9228. That's 334-272-9228. And it's an example, too, of as Alabama maybe becomes more populated, as more people move to go work in Hunts Vegas and in Birmingham, what you're going to find is a lot more folks are liberal, though I wouldn't exactly call this guy liberal. But you know what I mean. The coalition that makes up the left, you're going to find more and more of that stuff. Anyway, good luck in Maryland. Good old Catholic Maryland. 272-9228 if you want to get on the conversation. That's 334-272-9228. Let's go to line one. You're on there. Who's this?
Hey, you've got East.
Hey, East. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Look, I've got a question, and I'm not being facetious about this, but if I write something critical of this imam or the King of England, if a bunch of bobbies show up at my front door, what should be my response as an American citizen?
I mean, you should defend yourself by the legal means you have at your disposal.
That's right. We have a castle law here in Alabama, and it would be a bad thing. It would make a mess, especially since they're not armed. You know, our law is our law. And if they can't abide by it, then they get a plane ticket back to wherever they came from. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but I think there's a fundamental disagreement because you're claiming a fundamental source that's different. And I think it's time for Americans, don't need to freak out about it. I do believe in the freedom of religion in this country, but I do not believe in allowing what is essentially a religion and a political movement to create a beachhead in the mainland of the United States.
Well, stop telling me that I hate the Muslims because I hate the things that they do. Okay? No, that's not going to wash. You can't crash planes into buildings and then say that I hate you.
Well, and also, at the end of the day, I just think their theology's wrong.
Well, no, yeah, of course it is, and it's got to stop, Joey. Our laws are pretty good, and they will protect even people who aren't supposed to be here. But I can't go with their Sharia stuff.
No, me either. But
hey, man, thanks for a good show.
Appreciate it, East. And really, are we that shocked that there are a lot of folks who say, I believe this, and they mean it? And they'll use whatever tactics necessary? Yeah, shouldn't be shocked. And this whole idea that you could pacify people. Now, don't get me wrong. Just as there are a lot of people who are culturally Christian, because they just grew up around a bunch of Christians and they say they're Christian and stuff, and they don't really walk in the way. There are a lot of folks who are Muslim because that's just how everybody else is. There are a lot. I would suspect the vast majority of people in this world are just fairly lukewarm when it comes to a lot of this stuff. I could be wrong, and certainly it depends on whether you're talking a big city or a rural environment, and there's all sorts of factors on particular places. So what I do is I hold out hope that whatever somebody describes themselves as, that through persuasion, yes, friendship, through active love, which sometimes isn't always just being nice, you can change minds and let the Holy Spirit do his work. But when a guy who's like literally a leader of this particular thing is saying, we need to spill our blood for this, the advancement of Sharia, are we that surprised? And how persuasive, how loving is that sort of idea? 272-9228. 334-272-9228. But we can't, that's the number one sin in progressive America. You can't judge anybody critically or you're the bigot. Even if the Bible itself says that's wrong. If you're a progressive and you're a Baptist preacher, so-called, I don't care what Jesus said. I don't care what the Bible, the scriptures themselves, or what thousands of years of tradition say. We're now in a new era where the biggest problem is your bigotry. But at a certain point, the shoe is on the other foot. It's like, y'all just seem bigoted against us. And that a lot of your identity comes from being opposed to the way. And wanting to claim equal status with the thing while in fact, you are in rebellion. You're rebelling. You know that. Now, it's one thing if you're like truly a rebel and you kind of know what you're doing. You just want to see the world burn, man. It's not good, but it's a little more honest than the person who says, I want to be so different from this thing, but yet I also want to claim the fruits of it and the same status of it while I'm being different and rebelling. It's dishonest. And often people are being dishonest with themselves. That's the thing of it. They don't even know what they're doing. Anyway, let's hit a break. We'll be right back.
Want to carry News Talk in your pocket? Download the News Talk 93.1 app from the App Store. Available on iPhone and Android. Never miss a moment. Download now.
Welcome to Eclectic Coins, Montgomery's largest coin dealer, specializing in buying and selling investment-grade gold and silver coins. And they have a large selection of rare coins and coins from around the world. Visit them at 543 Northeastern Boulevard or on the web at eclecticcoins.com. Eclectic Coins, where collectors who know go.
Hi, I'm Carl Schmidt, naturopath and owner of the Herb Shop Wellness Center at 8161 Bowen Road. You know, with over 30 years experience in natural wellness, I've seen countless health fads come and go. A few years ago, we added a patented technology that actually activates your stem cells. It reverses the aging process at the cellular level. However, you do need proper hydration and targeted nutrition. At the Herb Shop, our advanced scanning and testing technology allows us to accurately assess your nutritional needs and get a customized plan for you. Come in today and see what the Herb Shop can do for you.
For too long, Alabama's statewide news companies have shamed us for our conservative Christian values. Alabama deserves a news company that cherishes our culture, a company that isn't bought and paid for by the powers that be. 1819 News is that company. Run by Alabamians for Alabamians, 1819 News celebrates what is good and beautiful about our state, while exposing those who work against our values in secret. Just go to 1819news.com to learn more. Subscribe to our newsletter. That's 1819news.com. This hour of News and Views is brought to you by our good friends at Cole Plumbing, 279-8919. Cole Plumbing is number one in the number two business. You don't have to dig a hole. They have proprietary pipelining technology. Ask them about their tankless water heaters. Remember, when you have trouble with your bowl, call on Cole.
Rich Thomas Weather, a service of Riverside Chevrolet Wetumpka. If it's Chevy, it's Riverside. Best price, best selection. Check them out on the web at riversideusa.net.
Hi, everybody. This is Rich Thomas. Blazing heat will be the big story this week. In fact, even dangerous heat for the first time this summer. I will break down the numbers and will look for any signs of rain in the forecast coming up in just a few minutes right here. Sponsored by...
We get Montgomery talking 24 hours a day. The River Region's most trusted voice. News Talk 93.1 FM WACV.
Joey Clark.
Welcome back. Two 272-9228. If you want to get in on the conversation, that's 334-272-9228. Let's go to the phones. I think we have a first-time caller here. Polar, is it? Hey, Polar, how you doing?
Hey, how are you doing, Bill? Yes, first time caller. I just want to say real quick, I really love your show, love what you're doing. So just had to jump on here and speak with you for a second.
Well, thank you, man. And what's on your mind today?
So, I heard I was coming home from work here, and you talk about this professor and everything, and his words about spilling blood for Sharia law and all that. And I just wanted to pick your brain for a second on that because, as a Catholic myself, I've always been taught to, at the very least, respect people of different faiths and beliefs and stuff. And it just seems to me that when it comes to people who are Muslim, when they're the ones who are trying to spread their faith and everything, it always comes with some type of antagonistic view or personality towards anyone else that disagrees with them. But if you're like a Catholic like me and you go out and try to speak the gospel to someone, that's seen as a problem. But them doing it, it's perfectly fine. And I'm not sure if it's because their beliefs say, oh, well, we're right and everybody else is wrong, so we can be going out and attacking everyone. But I just want to kind of get your thoughts on that because I've personally always had a problem with how it's always been like a double standard in the Muslim faith compared to everyone else.
Yeah, no, and I've noticed there is a more aggressive thing in how the evangelizing. Now, I've seen aggressive street preachers of the Christian variety too, where they're being purposely provocative and stuff. But I'm just watching like this in this world we now live in, where you can watch all these online debates. There does tend to be a much more aggressive push from the Islamic side. Because I'm just going to be blunt here, and I'm not an apologist in the sense of classically trained or anything. I don't think they have the facts on their side, in particular just with like the soundness of their text. And like the arguments tend to fall apart. So it then goes into more that you're insulting a billion Muslims if you, suggest otherwise, or if you want us to be quiet. And, I'm sure there, like I said earlier, there are, as you said, there are people out there who are Muslim who, because, that's how I was raised. And if you meet them where they are, like you believe in one God, and do you also respect the Old Testament, the New Testament, the actual ones? Like, you can have real conversations with people, but when it comes to those spearheading sort of the cause of Sharia, I've seen exactly what you're seeing. And it's one thing to be accepting and loving and meeting people where they are, but you also have to, you're called to stand up for what you believe is true and the faith you profess to believe. Even if you're not a trained professional, you still have a duty to push back when something gets too over the top, and you shouldn't be ashamed of it by any means.
Absolutely, and that's always been the problem that I've had is, there's a way to be respectful, but then also be, standing strong in your beliefs. But when it comes to the ideas of Sharia law, it just always seems like once you push back on that, suddenly you're attacking, like you said, everyone. And I don't understand personally why it's always just that with Islam. Because, when I meet people who are, say, Baptists or Seventh-day Adventists or stuff like that, they still believe in the same type of core principles in God that I do. And, we can have that disagreement on the structure of the principles and, how to regulate the faith. But it's just always, for some reason, when it comes to when you're speaking on the Muslim faith and in its context with Sharia law, it's just always this anger and hatred that I can't understand why, like you said, the coming together and meeting people where they are and trying to promote the peace and love and respect for differences. I just don't see why, that on at least on their side, it can't be more of that.
Well, my favorite, and I don't know if you've seen them, some of my favorite interviews are former ex-Muslims, the few that Matt Fradd has had conversations with. And if you haven't seen them or anybody out there listening, just put in Matt Fradd Muslim, and you should be able to find some of and it's very insightful. And there's one guy who's not just ex-Muslim, he's become fully Catholic. So there's just a fascinating perspective on, like a lot of, because these issues are hairy. Not everybody who's, again, a Muslim is some imam saying, spill your blood to spread Sharia. They feel just as pressured as anybody else. And so the conversion stories are fascinating because, to your point, a Muslim can come to the United States or the UK or wherever and on the street corner be pretty aggressive and provocative in spreading what they think is true. But go try to do that in Saudi Arabia, or even places that have modernized. Go try to do that in the Islamic world. Try to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I think you're going to end up having some issues. Doesn't mean, again, you can't respect one another. We've seen the Pope himself go about that and try to appeal to small Christian populations in Muslim lands and build peace, which I think is a smart strategy when you're a minority in Muslim lands. But it's interesting, the double standard.
Absolutely. And one day I hope that double standard can be crushed and, it won't be there anymore, but we'll just have to pray and hope that eventually will happen because, just changing hearts and minds, that's the only way we're going to get there.
Well, amen, brother. Appreciate the call.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
272-9228. Again, if you want to get in on the conversation, it's 334-272-9228. Yeah, one thing that's fascinating, I can't remember the young man's name, and I watched it months ago. It's not fresh in the mind. But the amount of folks who leave Islam, there are a lot of reasons people don't, even if they're having, say, questions about the Islamic faith and doctrine. It's because of social pressure. Like you're not going to have that family anymore. You'll be castigated. There is a lot of built-in, and you see this in a lot of societies, that if you rock the boat and go against what is the dominant culture that intends to dominate, you're going to have a lot of just practical issues. It's tough enough in America. Think about, I'll use the example to be polite. What if you grew up Roman Catholic and all of a sudden you think, well, actually, I want to be a Reformed Baptist. There's going to be, most folks you'd like to think are going to be able to understand that you have in your faith and life and your family, but you probably will lose some friends. You might lose some family members if you make a shift like that, or vice versa. You're a Reformed Baptist and you decide to become Catholic. You might have some folks that just, they don't hate you. It's not like you're under physical threat or anything like that, but there might be some friction there. And so it's tough enough in a free society with freedom of religion. Imagine places where that freedom is not duly respected. And so because you have a very tight lid on any sort of competition with Islamic faith and Islamic lands, how are people finally being called to leave and to become Christians? And this one guy, again, it's on Matt Fradd's show, just put in Matt Fradd Muslim, talked about dreams, that in fact it's downright biblical, that people are having dreams that are, encounters with Christ, visions also of the Virgin Mary, but again, it's a very Catholic thing, but I believe it. And it makes me have hope that even in the places where you think that it is darkest, I mean, think of how Christianity spread across, in particular, much of the Hispanic-speaking world, the conquistadors, coming out of a culture that was not exactly friendly to Christianity in the native populations, and to see that spread where millions of people convert to Christianity over a couple centuries. It's remarkable what can happen and how the faith can spread. And so I always resist this idea of it must always end in bloodshed in a new crusade. Sometimes that does happen. But especially with Trump trying to create this, say, New Deal in the Middle East and create some room for people to getting to know each other, especially younger generations getting to know each other. If you give a little bit of breathing room and then you let the Holy Spirit do the rest of the work, we might be amazed. In fact, you probably will be amazed at how God does his work in this world. 272-9228. That's 334-272-9228. How about this? Let's hit a break. Final break of the show. More after this.
He may not know whether he's coming or going, but whether you're going to work or coming home, Greg Budell is there. Mornings, 6 till 9, and afternoons, 3 till 6. Only on News Talk 93.1 FM, WACV.
This is your roving reporter. Today I'm talking with a prospector. That's right, man. I'm prospecting for gold. You dig? No, but it looks like you do. And you know the first thing I'm going to do when I strike it rich? What's that? I'm going to hire David Ernest to be my money man. You mean everyone's favorite asset preservationist? That is correct, man. I'm going to call him up at 833-596-7233. 833-596-SAFE. You know, I've heard a lot of the good things about David Ernest. You know, he's the best money man around with over 40 years of experience. Experience is necessary, especially when you're digging for gold. That's right, man. And I can see that you don't have very much experience. What do you mean, man? Well, you have the little plastic bucket and shovel like a kid would take to the beach. Yeah, man, well, I want to start out small and then kind of pace myself up until I strike it rich. Well, maybe you should call David Ernest first. You think he's got a shovel? Never know till you ask. I dig, man.
Pizza Perfect is carrying over the $10 buffet for July. They also have the perfect deal to feed your family tonight. Order any large pizza and get an order of boneless wings free. Pizza Perfect is known for their all-you-can-eat buffet, including pizza, spaghetti, breadsticks, salad, dessert, and drink, and it's only $10 in July. Available Monday through Saturday for lunch and for dinner on Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday. Buy any large pizza, get an order of boneless wings on the house at Pizza Perfect, Coliseum Boulevard, Eastbrook, pickup and delivery. Pizza Perfect is closed this week for vacation.
This is Jonathan with Oswalt's Apparel and Footwear in Prattville. With all that's changed in the last decade, I really thought that radio advertising was dead, but I was wrong. We opened our store during the pandemic, and we wouldn't have been near as successful without advertising on Blue Water. Practically every day, someone comes in for the first time and tells us they heard about Oswalt's on the radio. I highly recommend advertising with Blue Water.
Our advertisers are our biggest advocates. Call us to find out how radio can increase your bottom line. Blue Water Broadcasting. Local folks helping local business.
This hour of News and Views is brought to you by our good friends at Cole Plumbing, 279-8919. Cole Plumbing is number one in the number two business. You don't have to dig a hole. They have proprietary pipelining technology. Ask them about their tankless water heaters. Remember, when you have trouble with your bowl, call on Cole.
If it concerns your community, you'll hear about it on News Talk 93.1. News Talk 93.1 FM WACV.
Snows where the dawn flowers spring.
Joey Clark.
Welcome back. 272-9228 if you want to get some final closing shots in. And I want to put a little bit of meat on the bone of what I was just saying. If y'all don't know the story of Our Lady of Guadalupe and the tilma, it's pretty incredible. And, say in the early 1500s, a lot of Franciscan missionaries were trying to convert a lot of the indigenous population, indigenous peoples, including the Aztecs, who are deeply attached to their polytheistic religion, which included human sacrifice. So in December of 1531, the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared 4 times to Juan Diego, who was a recently baptized indigenous man near Mexico City. She asked for a church to be built on this particular hill and left a miraculous image of herself on his tilma. In fact, the first time he goes to tell the bishop, Our Lady appeared to me and wants we should build a cathedral. And, who is this guy? He just converted. Who is he to talk to the bishop? The bishop says, well, that's great, but go away. So the story continues that Mary appears again appears 4 times. And finally, on the last time, it says to take off your tilma, which is essentially a cloak and made of dried cactus and stuff, and arranges these roses that weren't even native to the area, these beautiful roses, into his tilma and wraps it up in the tilma and says, go present this, and this will prove it to the bishop. So Juan Diego waits outside. They keep him kind of at bay. He's bothering them at this point, but he won't unfurl. He won't show him what he's holding in his tilma and his cloak all wrapped up. And so finally they let him in to see the bishop. And as he unfurls it and all the roses fall out, there is this miraculous image imprinted on the tilma of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And it's unlike anything the Spanish had brought to Mexico. It depicted Mary as a pregnant indigenous woman. She was standing on the moon and before the sun. You can look up Our Lady of Guadalupe. Those were symbols of Aztec gods with stars on her mantle. And she was crushing a serpent under her feet, and it spoke to the native peoples in a deeply symbolic way. It presented Christianity not as a religion of conquerors, but as something that fulfilled their deepest longings and prophecies. The image led to mass renunciation of idols, an end to human sacrifice in the region, and a flood of requests for baptism. Now, how many? That happened in 1531. It's estimated from 1531 to 1538, 8 million natives converted. In 7 years, 8 million people were baptized and became Christians. Other sources describe 9 to 10 million people within about 10 years, from 1531 to 1541. And by the way, that tilma with the image still exists 500 years later. It shows no signs of natural decay. After nearly 500 years, it should have lasted 20, 30 years. It's still preserved and venerated, the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico City. It's one of the most visited Catholic shrines in the world. In fact, there was a story, I believe, in the early 20th century where a communist who hated God, and godless communists, hated God and the Catholic Church, put a bouquet of roses where the tilma was being displayed in a church in front of an altar. And in that bouquet of roses were 20-something sticks of dynamite that, of course, he set to blow up. It destroyed the stone altar. It blew out the windows of the church. In fact, there was a brass crucifix on the altar that has been preserved where it was, from the blast, completely bent back and deformed. Yet the tilma, just behind like a simple frame and glass, despite everything else in the church being just blown to pieces, was untouched. And I don't have all the information right in front of me, but the amount of studies that have been done about this are truly remarkable. Truly remarkable. But even without getting into all the scientific studies and the alignment of the stars that are on the mantle of Our Lady in that image, that again, you could go still see today. Just look at the effect it had. 10 million people in 10 years. Something like 3,000 baptisms a day, give or take. And so you're telling me that can't happen in, well, places that are mentioned by other names in the Bible from thousands of years ago? That miracles can't occur if you open up a space for understanding and for peace? Doesn't mean you need to be a pushover. Doesn't mean sometimes, well, perhaps there is a prudential judgment a president of the United States needs to make. Iran will never get a nuclear weapon. The Pope can say what he wants, but I'm not going to let him do that. Because at the end of the day, though, God's the one in charge. So never underestimate how quickly things can turn and for what reasons things can turn. 272-9228. Again, if you want to get on the conversation. Hold on here. I forgot to call Ray Bowles. So let's just call him right on the air. Hope he's not doing anything crazy right now. Come on, Ray. Is he off for the 4th of July? I don't know.
Hey.
Hey, it's Joey. You're on the air. I'm by myself.
Joey. Hey, sorry, I could not get off the phone quick enough. I was on with my well my well's leaking, and everybody's blaming the other person for it.
Yeah, and I'm by myself, and I got talking about Our Lady of Guadalupe and stuff. So, like, I was like, oh, I need to call Ray. But how's the day going?
Good. When are we going on live?
We're on now.
We're on now. Oh, well, now everybody knows my well's leaking. Yeah, that's how my day's going. I tell you what, I just got off the phone with that. Now they're trying to blame it on the filter people, and I'm like, how in the devil is it the filter lady's fault that's hooked to the house when the well's leaking from in the yard? This is the same thing. The poor guys get blamed for everything in new construction.
Goodness gracious.
And I'm like, guys, we didn't frame the house. We didn't put the sheetrock up. How am I involved in this? But okay, let's talk about it and figure out what's going on. Because the one thing we're not going to do is blame somebody else. If we do something wrong, we're going to fix it. I mean, I'm in probably, 120 houses a month, easy.
Yeah.
It's not always going to go perfect. But if you take care of the problem, you don't try to blame somebody else, then your customer, 99% of the time, they're happy that you're just taking care of them. And that's what we do at Prattville Carpet. We take care of our clients. Amen. So you're not having to get as frustrated as I am right this second.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to spring you on there.
Yeah, sorry. I was just sitting there fussing at somebody about this. Yeah, I can't get over why people won't just take responsibility for what the work they do. It drives me insane.
Absolutely. All right, but that ain't a problem there at Prattville Carpet. Is it still 285-8117?
It is 285-8117. Calls will come out and give you that free measurement, and like I said, if you have a problem before, call me. We're going to come out and figure it out and get it taken care of.
Well, I appreciate it, Ray. And you're going to be, what are your hours as we come up on the holiday?
Okay, we're going to be open Friday until I think around 2, and then we're going to call it a day. I got so much work going on, I can't close on Friday like we normally do.
Okay.
Which is a good problem to have.
Yeah,
I'm not fussing.
Very good problem to have.
Yeah, we got floors. We got to get people moved in before they move into their new houses, because this time of year you got a lot of military coming in, and yeah, we got a lot of work going on. So, but we can get you done if you need to be done. Call us 285-8117.
Well, I appreciate it, and we'll talk again tomorrow.
Hey, thanks. Bye.
That's right. Well, I got to get out of here because Greg Vidal, he's next. I believe David Blackman's going to be on with him. Y'all stay tuned.
Broadcasting from the Riverside Chevrolet Master Control Center, this is WACV Cusada, News Talk 93.1 FM. When it's Chevy, it's Riverside.